Chapter 2783. Origin energy appeared in a fifth tribulation warrior's body, and it was stored in his elixir. It was not just one or two strands of origin energy, but a lot. This was against common sense. Not only the spectators, but all the great Emperor Realm warriors could not figure it out. How horrifying was the origin energy? It was understandable that some strands of origin energy could be stored in the elixir through some special means. But could the elixir withstand so much origin energy? Luli was enjoying himself. He chased after the bead and kept attacking. Soon, he had done it for more than a dozen times. Finally, the bead exploded. Hua Tiandao was smashed away. Hua Tiandao's armor was of high quality. It was able to withstand some of the power. But his back was torn. Blood gushed out from his mouth. His eyes were filled with rage. He could not figure out how Luli could have so much origin energy. Should he admit defeat or fight to the bitter end? While running away, Hua Tiandao was thinking. He was unwilling to give up like this. He was the most powerful warrior voted for by countless people. Luli was just a nobody. How could he lose to Luli? If he did, he would become a stepping stone for Luli to make a name for himself. I don't think he has that much origin energy. Hua Tiandao decided to hang on for a bit longer. He did not believe that Luli's origin energy was endless. As long as he could survive a few more waves of attacks, he would win. Whoosh! Luli was so fast that he caught up with Hua Tiandao. Then, he hacked at him again. Hua Tiandao released black sword energy at once and then took out a piece of treasure. It was a shield, a piece of treasure as well. Boom! The shield cracked. Hua Tiandao was smashed away again. This time, he was in a miserable state. He was covered in blood. This time, his injuries were quite severe, and this was under the premise that he released a type of defensive god art. How many more treasures do you have? Luli flew over with violent energy. He stood in the air like a demon. His face was cold. If Hua Tiandao did not admit defeat, then he would have to injure him badly. In that case, Hua Tiandao would lose the chance to move up. Whoosh! Another move. This time, Hua Tiandao released two strands of black air and took out a pagoda. This was another piece of treasure. It could be compared to a great emperor weapon. Boom! The black blade energy was annihilated, and the pagoda was sent flying. This time, it actually didn't shatter. However, the light on the pagoda was very dim. If he continued to use the pagoda as a shield, it would probably shatter. Boom! Luli kept releasing rays of sword light, as if his source energy was inexhaustible. The pagoda finally couldn't hold on any longer. It directly exploded and turned into dust. Prodigal. This pagoda is clearly an important treasure. There's also the shield from before and the pearl that was destroyed at the beginning. This time, Hua Tiandao's losses are great. The young master of a rich family is indeed rich. This destroyed treasure is a treasure that countless people yearn for even in their dreams. It's all wasted just like that. Why hasn't Hua Tiandao admitted defeat? How many more treasures does he have? Perhaps Feng Wooding will run out of origin energy as well? He's waiting for Feng Wooding's origin energy to run out. What a waste. Every one of them is a precious treasure, the spectators on the stands exclaimed. Many people were heartbroken. They exclaimed about the wealth of the Hua family and the strength of their origin energy. They were jealous of the two. The battle was still going on. Luli was chasing after Hua Tiandao, and Hua Tiandao was running away in embarrassment. Later on, he released two more treasures, both of which were smashed by Luli. Hua Tiandao himself was covered in wounds. It was too horrible to look at. If the fight went on, he would be seriously injured. Feng Wooding, Hua Tiandao gnashed his teeth and yelled. He had never been in such a sorry state in his life, not to mention in front of tens of thousands of people. He had lost all face. Many of his treasures were destroyed, including those given to him by his family and those he obtained from some strange places of treasure. All of them were destroyed in this fight. Luli's source energy showed no signs of running out. He had lost all hope. Even though he didn't want to admit defeat, when Luli's next attack came, he had no more treasures to defend himself. He had to shout in anger, "I admit defeat! I admit defeat!" Buzzing, many patriarchs outside had been paying attention. As soon as Hua Tiandao shouted his surrender, they teleported him out. Otherwise, Hua Tiandao might be torn into pieces. By then, he wouldn't know how to explain to the Hua family. Phew. After he was teleported out, Hua Tiandao breathed in relief. He felt many people were looking at him with pity, mockery, and mockery. He almost couldn't resist the urge to fly to the holy city of women and teleport away. No, I must get my revenge. I will take back my glory with my own hands. Hua Tiandao yelled to himself. He flew back to the outdoor pavilion and found a place to tend to his wounds. If someone could win the challenge, then he would have to take on 2 more challenges. In that case, Hua Tiandao would lose the chance to advance. Buzzing, Lu Li was teleported out. Almost everyone was looking at him. They were looking at him with mixed feelings. There was shock, confusion, admiration, suspicion, jealousy. There were all kinds of emotions. Lu Li didn't care. He flicked his sleeves, turned around, and walked toward the pavilion. Looking at his calm expression, people felt he was enigmatic. He didn't seem to be a dark horse, but a wolf hiding in a flock of sheep. Everything seemed to be within his expectations. As a matter of fact, when Xiang and the others had finished before Lu Li came out. But the disparity in abilities was too great, so nobody paid attention. There were still 3 fierce battles left, but almost no one went to watch them. The fight between Lu Li and Hua Tiandao had attracted most people's attention. Many were still wondering why Lu Li had so much origin energy. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong kept a straight face, but they were overjoyed. At first, they didn't understand. But as they listened to the discussions, they understood. Lu Li's abilities were so strong because he had origin energy that belonged to an Emperor Realm warrior. Even though many people said that Lu Li's origin energy must be of the Emperor Realm, Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong believed that it was Lu Li's. Lu Li had always been a man full of miracles. He had brought them many surprises time and time again. "I object." Right at that moment, someone suddenly shouted. He flew from the grandstand to the pavilion where Shadow Queen and the others were at. He bowed and said, "Shadow Queen, my lords, I don't think this is fair. I feel that this match is unfair. Windwooding must have cheated. How can a warrior of the 5th tribulation have origin energy? This is not fair. Wooding should be disqualified." "What?" Someone objected. People on the grandstand began to discuss. Some agreed, some looked on indifferently, and some objected. The Huayang Peak was in a mess. It was as if tens of thousands of ducks were quacking. Objection overruled. Chapter 2784. Queen of Shadow had great power in the Holy Lady sect. She was the most powerful person in the entire Endless Ruins. To a certain extent, her words represented the Holy Lady sect. The Huayang seminar was held by the Holy Lady sect, and the rules were set by them. Nobody else had the right to make irresponsible remarks. That person seemed to be asking for trouble and retreated in embarrassment. Many people didn't say anything, but they were not convinced by Lu Li's victory. Lu Li was not famous, and he was only at the 5th tribulation realm. If it were Hua Tiandao who released his origin energy, everyone would only exclaim how powerful he was. Nobody would say anything. Lu Li didn't care. He sat with his legs crossed and cultivated origin energy. He had consumed some origin energy. Even though it was just a drop in the ocean for his nearly 10,000 strands of origin energy, he now knew how powerful origin energy was. Therefore, he was eager to have more. As a matter of fact, Lu Li's usage of origin energy was not good enough. Many great Emperor Realm warriors could tell. Lu Li didn't know how to use origin energy. He just blended it into divine energy in a simple or even crude way. Origin energy was one of the most powerful forces in the world. There was another force above it called Saint King's energy. Saint King's energy was based on origin energy. In essence, it was still origin energy. If this energy was used well, it could produce destructive power. Even a Super Emperor Realm warrior that was halfway to the Great Emperor Realm could be defeated, let alone someone like Hua Tiandao. Lu Li didn't even report to Emperor Rui and the higher-ups of the Celestial Emperor sect that he could cultivate origin energy. He didn't have time to study the usage of origin energy. He was satisfied that he could defeat Hua Tiandao with origin energy. Nothing else mattered to him as long as he could keep winning and take away Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong. The rest of the matches went on quickly. Dong Yang was the third to make it to the next round. His opponent was the former number 6, who was defeated by Dong Yang. What? Lu Li was alarmed from his cultivation. There was a lot of noise outside. The other 2 matches ended almost at the same time. Yuan Xian and Tu Ying won at the same time. Tu Ying was on the winning side. Now, she was directly in the top 5. Yuan Xian's unexpected win meant that the last one of the top 5 was in suspense. Yuan Xian was defeated by Lu Li first. After he won, he must accept challenges from others. He still had to win 2 matches in a row to have a chance to advance to the top 5. If he lost, then the winner would continue to accept challenges until he won 2 more matches. 4 of the top 5 had already been decided. There was only one chance left for them to advance to the top 5, and that was to defeat Yuan Kuang and accept another challenge to win 2 matches in a row. There were still 6 people left, and they had to fight for a spot. Most importantly, there was no time to rest, and the winner would have to continuously accept challenges. This would make the competition even more intense and cruel. Yuan Kuang had just become a lord. Even if he had a whole body of treasures, the problem was that his foundation was too weak. He definitely wouldn't be able to last 2 matches. So who would be the last to advance to the next round? No one could say for sure, because many people were seriously injured and didn't have time to recover. Lu Li, on the other hand, didn't care who won or lost. He just cultivated in a corner. Now that he had entered the top 5, he was getting closer and closer to first place. The results of the next martial arts competition would be decided directly. This is my chance. Although Hua Tiandao had been recuperating, he had also been investigating his surroundings. Yuan Kuang had unexpectedly won this match, and a spot had appeared. For Hua Tiandao, this was a heaven-sent opportunity. He could not miss it. If he could get into the top 5 this time, he would have a month's rest. By then, he could ask powerful warriors of the Hua family for help and find a way to defeat Yuan Kuang. He still didn't believe that Lu Li had endless source energy. 4 of the top 5 have advanced to the next round. Young Master Yuan, congratulations on defeating your opponent. You are now in the semi-top 5. But now, you must accept 2 challenges. Only after 2 matches can you truly enter the top 5. As for the right to challenge, the rest of you will vote to decide. Majority rules. The patriarch of the Holy Lady sect announced the rules, and the rest gathered together to discuss. When someone asked Hua Tiandao, he shook his head and said, "I won't go for the first match. You go ahead." The remaining 4 discussed for a while and finally decided to let Lu Yun go. After all, he was one of the 5 most popular. His status and strength were higher than the others. Naturally, he should go first. Apart from Hua Tiandao, the others were satisfied that they could make it this far. As far as they were concerned, the top 5 would either belong to Yuan Kuang, Hua Tiandao, or Lu Yun. They didn't want to fight anymore. So what if they were lucky enough to make it to the top 5? Could he still continue to go up? Therefore, the other 3 almost didn't want to challenge anymore. They left the opportunity to the other 2. If Hua Tiandao didn't go, then Lu Yun would. Everyone's attention was on the battlefield, but Lu Li didn't go to watch. It didn't mean much to him. He had made it to the next round. His opponents in the top 5 were all powerful. It didn't matter who the last one was. The battle was fierce. Both of them were injured. Yuan Kuang didn't come here to get a good rank. He was here to learn. He fought with all his might. If he could win, he would keep on fighting. Lu Yun was one of the 5 most popular. He was born in one of the 18 sections. Naturally, he wanted to get a better rank, to gain glory for his family and sect, and to gain fame for himself. There was a big difference between the top 5 and the top 10. Maybe no one would remember the top 10, but they would definitely remember the top 5. After all, there were only 5 people. This battle lasted for an hour. In the end, Lu Yun won with difficulty. He was already injured, and now his injuries were even worse. His body was covered in blood. It was a tragic sight. Lu Yun won. Naturally, the challenge began again. Lu Yun had to win 2 more battles to advance. The others looked at each other. They didn't dare to go up and challenge. Would they be able to advance, even if they won? There was still Hua Tiandao, who was eyeing them like a tiger, ready to make a move at any time. Hua Tiandao had clearly refined the top elixir. His recovery speed was fast. Even though his injuries were still serious, if he continued to recover, he could probably recover 70% to 80% of his previous strength. Lu Yi, seeing that no one wanted a challenge, Hua Tiandao sent a message to the 7th place. You go up and fight. I don't expect you to win. Just try to make Lu Yun's injuries as serious as possible. If you do this well, I will owe you a favor. Lu Yi was a bit hesitant. After all, if he went up and injured Lu Yun, he would offend Lu Yun. However, Hua Tiandao's favor was very tempting. After all, his identity was not ordinary. It's a normal challenge for you to go up. No one can say anything about it. Lu Yun won't blame you either. Hua Tiandao continued. What's more, if you go easy and admit defeat, Lu Yun might even owe you a favor. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. All right. Lu Yi clenched his teeth. Hua Tiandao was famous for his bad temper. If he offended this person, his future days would be difficult. In any case, he was challenging normally. No one dared to say anything about him. Lu Yi went up. Hua Tiandao, however, glanced at Lu Li, who was cultivating in the corner. He sneered and murmured to himself, Feng Wooding, I will definitely enter the top 5. I will take back the glory I lost with my own hands. I will wash away this shame with blood. Chapter 2785. As expected, Lu Yi could not win. However, he still had some achievements, causing Lu Yun's injuries to worsen. In the end, if he went all out, he had a chance to win. However, he chose to withdraw and sold a favor to Lu Yun. Lu Yun did not feel too happy after winning a match because he knew that Hua Tiandao had rested for so long. His injuries had already recovered quite a bit. One was recuperating, while the other was already riddled with wounds. Furthermore, he had fought 2 consecutive battles. It would be too difficult to win. As he expected, after Lu Yi went down, Hua Tiandao got up and cupped his hands towards the crowd. The others immediately made way for him. Hua Tiandao's aura was like a rainbow. After charging in, he immediately attacked. Furthermore, he continuously released all kinds of divine abilities. Lu Yun had fought 2 consecutive battles and was already physically and mentally exhausted. In addition, his injuries were severe, so he could only be suppressed by Hua Tiandao. The battle quickly became one-sided. Lu Yun was suppressed too much and had no way to retaliate. He could only bitterly hold on. Hua Tiandao had healed for so long and was unreasonably fierce. His aura was also very strong, forcing Lu Yun to retreat step by step. After fighting bitterly for more than an hour, Lu Yun finally could not take it anymore. He gritted his teeth and admitted defeat. Hua Tiandao successfully ascended the stage and accepted the next challenge. There was actually nothing left to fight in this battle. The only one who could fight against Hua Tiandao was Lu Yun. Now that Lu Yun had lost and was so heavily injured, he would need at least half a day to recover. He would never have the chance to go up again. Lu Yun was heavily injured, Yuan Kuang was heavily injured, and Lu Yu was also injured just now. The remaining 2 had no intention of going up. What were they going up for? Were they going to humiliate themselves? Not only would they not win, they would also offend Hua Tiandao. Hua Tiandao's temper was famous for being hot-tempered and vengeful. They did not want to offend this madman. Young masters, which one of you want to challenge young Master Hua? The Saintess sect elder shouted. The remaining 2 young masters looked at each other and said at the same time, I forfeit. 2 people forfeited, and the remaining 3 were heavily injured. What was the point of fighting? Lu Yun thought for a moment and said with a bitter smile, Brother Hua's battle prowess is monstrous. He should enter the top 5. I also forfeit the challenge. We all forfeit the challenge. Young Master Hua is worthy. Lu Yi and Yuan Kuang no longer hesitated and immediately expressed their abstention. There was no point in continuing to fight. Hua Tiandao was already very strong, so everyone was convinced that he would be able to enter the top 5. Hua Tiandao was still in the fighting arena. After waiting for a while, he was puzzled to see that no one had come in. After a while, he was suddenly teleported out. "Congratulations, young Master Hua," the elder of the female holy sect said with a smile. "The rest of the people have forfeited. Congratulations on entering the top 5. Hua Tiandao rubbed his nose. He did not feel the slightest bit of joy. It did not seem like he had won the top 5 with his own strength. Instead, it seemed like it was given to him out of charity. The top 5 have officially been decided. They are young Master Feng Wuding, young Master Wenxiang, young Master Dongyang, young Master Tuing, and young Master Hua Tiandao. The elder of the female holy sect said with a smile, "Tomorrow, we will issue the list and announce the top 5 and top 10 to the world. The rewards that we promised before will also be honored. We will take a break for a month, and then the finals will be held in a month. The winner will stand at the peak of the Huayang Forum. Please look forward to it." The semifinals were over. Tens of thousands of people returned to the holy city of female holy sect. Of course, some patriarchs of emperors and other forces were invited to live in other mountains to wait for the finals. Lu Li and the other 30 people were still living here. Lu Li went back to his castle and started closed-door cultivation. He told the maid not to see anyone and to call him when the finals began. However, he was woken up after just 5 days of closed-door cultivation. The maid looked at Lu Li, who was a bit gloomy, and said, "I am sorry, young Master Feng. The movie queen asked us to invite you. She is hosting a banquet. This time, many emperors from our sect will attend, and so will some emperors from outside. She wants us to invite all the young masters in the top 10. Lu Li sighed. He could skip banquets for average people, but he had to go to the banquet hosted by the movie queen. Otherwise, even if he won the championship, if the movie queen was not happy about it, then it would be difficult for him to marry Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong. He had no choice but to freshen up and put on the gorgeous robe that the female holy sect had prepared for him. With the help of the maidservants, he combed his hair until it was shiny. Then he boarded the chariot that was waiting for him and went to the largest castle in the Huayang Peak. Since there were emperors and patriarchs from outside, the banquet was particularly grand. The red carpet outside the banquet was more than 30 feet long. On both sides of the carpet stood warriors in neat rows. Maids walked in and out through 2 small doors. It was a lively scene. "Young Master Feng Wuding is here," a steward outside shouted. Lu Li walked in strides. Some people had arrived. Lu Li took a look. 6 of the top 10 young masters were here. The 35 beauties were all here. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong were all dressed up. When Lu Li walked in, he attracted many people's attention. Many young ladies that were indifferent to him now looked at him with passion. Xiang Linglong and Lu Ling were looking at him as well. Now, they could look at him openly because all the young ladies were looking at Lu Li. Lu Li had defeated Hua Tiandao and became the most dazzling star. It wouldn't be surprising if Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong went to his castle. Lu Li's seat was near the front, the 3rd seat in the 2nd row. Since there were emperors here, the 1st row was reserved for them. Nobody else was qualified to sit there. Lu Li sat down and said nothing. He drank by himself and didn't want to talk to anyone. He ignored the flirtatious looks from the beauties, which disappointed many of them. Even though Xiang Linglong and Lu Ling wanted to talk to Lu Li, they didn't dare to act rashly under the circumstances. Many emperors were coming, and they could see through their act. Soon, all the top 10 were here. As soon as Hua Tiandao came in, he saw Lu Li. He didn't pay any attention to the 35 beauties. He just stared at Lu Li as if he wanted to skin him alive. "What are you looking at?" At first, Lu Li didn't want to talk to Hua Tiandao, but Hua Tiandao kept staring at him. Lu Li raised his head impatiently and said to Hua Tiandao, "There are so many beauties here. What are you staring at me for? I don't want to do that." PFF, someone was drinking to Wenxiang, and he spat it out. Many young ladies were surprised as well. Then, they covered their mouths and giggled. Hua Tiandao was already short-tempered. It was as if a volcano had been ignited. He was filled with killing intent as he said coldly, "Do you want to die? Do you think I won't kill you because you are at the Holy Maiden sect?" The atmosphere in the hall froze. It was just a joke, but Hua Tiandao's reaction was so drastic that it made the atmosphere awkward. I believe you. Chapter 2786. Hua Tiandao was born into a wealthy family, one of the royal families of the 18 major sections. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. What was more, he was talented. Since he was a kid, he had been able to defeat his peers. Therefore, he was highly valued by the sect, which developed his arrogance. Growing up, he was rarely mistreated. Sometimes, he would be scolded by the elders when he went too far. But nobody else dared to scold him, let alone laugh at him or humiliate him. Hua Tiandao was enraged to the extreme. There were so many beauties here that he could not step down. His eyes were spitting out flames of anger. He was trembling, and the killing intent inside him was soaring. Lu Li picked up his goblet and took a sip. He didn't mind at all. This was the Holy Girl sect. Hua Tiandao had the guts to make a move, but his family elders didn't. Otherwise, it would be a slap to the face of the Holy Girl sect. As long as Hua Tiandao's family elders didn't make a move, he could do whatever he wanted. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sound of footsteps broke the awkward atmosphere. Lu Yi pulled Hua Tiandao to the side to sit down and said, "Young Master Hua, calm down. Many great Emperor realm warriors are coming. Don't make a scene." Hua Tiandao calmed down as well. If they were outside the Holy Girl sect, he wouldn't have the heart to do this. He would try his best to kill Lu Li. If Lu Li were to make a scene at the Holy Girl sect, he would be the one to suffer. A group of experts walked in from outside. They were all quasi-emperors and emperor-level experts. The Shadow Empress and more than 10 people walked in side by side. All of their auras were as vigorous as the sea. Although they had restrained their auras, they still made everyone feel oppressed. More than a dozen great Emperor realm warriors. Lu Li's eyes glowed. It was an honor to be able to attend a banquet with so many great Emperor realm warriors. Many other young masters were excited as well. Lu Yi's achievement was enough for him to brag for years. This time, there were not only more than a dozen great Emperor realm warriors, but also more than 20 patriarchs of different families. The spacious hall was filled with people. More than 100 maids were walking around. It was a lively scene. Queen of Shadows and several great Emperor realm warriors were sitting at the center. Many people were toasting to them. Since there were great Emperor realm warriors and quasi-emperors here, Lu Li kept a low profile and didn't say anything. He just listened to the powerful warriors. Halfway through the banquet, the movie Empress waved her hand, and the 35 beauties took turns to perform, making the hearts of countless young masters itch. Hua Tiandao was the only one who kept a straight face. Every now and then, he would glance at Lu Li with hatred. After the woman displayed her talents, the movie queen suggested that the 10 young masters should come up and display their talents, which made the atmosphere even livelier. The top 10 were all young masters of prestigious families. Since young, they had been trained in all kinds of etiquette by their families. They were proficient in the 4 arts. To these young masters, performing some talents was a very simple matter. It was also a chance for them to display themselves, attract the attention of beauties, and win their favor. Wen Xiang was the first to take the stage. His sword dance was elegant and graceful, extremely beautiful, drawing a wave of cheers. Next, it was Dong Yang's turn. He showed off a kind of relief carving technique. He quickly carved 2 beautiful jade sculptures out of jade on the spot, which were very lifelike. The 2 were Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong. He even gave the jade sculptures to the 2 of them, which drew a wave of cheers. Tu Ying, Lu Yun, and Lu Yi went up one after another. Hua Tiandao went up as well. He showed a kind of fist skill, which was specially used for performance. It was full of strength and beauty, demonstrating the masculine beauty of a man. Everyone was on the stage except for Lu Li. Lu Li didn't want to put on a show like this. He grew up in the wilderness, so he never had the chance to learn such high-pressure skills. Naturally, he wouldn't learn them later on. Therefore, he didn't have anything to show off. Was he supposed to go up and shake his butt? Everyone was on the stage except for Lu Li. Many people looked at him. Lu Li smiled in embarrassment and said, "So many young masters have performed. I'm not talented enough, so I won't go up and embarrass myself." "How can you do that?" No, no, everyone is on the stage. Young Master Foam, you must go up. Yes, yes, young Master Foam, you must go up. Some of them were waiting for Luli to go up. Luli was in the limelight now. How could they let him go? The Shadow Queen looked at Luli kindly and said, Foam Wooding, your forefather was an all-rounder. Didn't you learn a thing or two from him? Don't be shy. Come up and give us a show. The Shadow Queen had spoken. What else could Luli do? He thought about it for a while. He got up, walked to the center of the stage, and sat down with his legs crossed. Then he said with a smile, Can you lend me a guccine? I will play something to liven things up. What? People were discussing in a low voice. Luli was going to play the guccine. He didn't even have his own guccine. Every guccine was different. Those who were not familiar with the guccine could not bring out the best of their skills. What did it mean? That Luli was not proficient in guccine? Most of the people here were from wealthy families. Everyone was proficient in guccine. Luli, a layman, was displaying his slight skill in front of an expert and making a fool of himself. The Shadow Queen waved her hand. A lady stood up and took out a guccine. She walked to Luli, handed it to him with both hands, and said, Young Master Foam, the name of this guccine is Jia. I am waiting for you to play. Luli nodded. He took over the guccine and put it on the table. He even fiddled with it clumsily, as if he was trying to figure out the sound. Everyone was speechless. Luli didn't seem to be proficient in guccine. He didn't even know how to play. He didn't even tune the guccine, and he didn't seem to have learned it. Luli fiddled with it for a bit and found the right tone. He smiled awkwardly and closed his eyes to think. He didn't know many songs, just a few. Eventually, he chose a simple one. He didn't want to make a mistake. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong looked at Lu Li, amused and annoyed at the same time. They were speechless at his clumsy technique, but they knew Lu Li well. He wouldn't do anything he wasn't sure about. Therefore, they were looking forward to seeing what Lu Li was going to do. Dong, a low sound came out, like the sound in the deep mountains. Lu Li began to play. Judging from the first few notes, it was obvious that Lu Li was not good at guccine skills. He didn't even have a basic sense of rhythm. To the people who were proficient in guccine, it sounded like some noise. But they were all well-educated, so they didn't show any special expressions. Dong dong, after a while, Lu Li seemed to have found the right rhythm. His playing was getting better and better. The song he played was deep and distant, making people feel like they were imagining images. It was like seeing a deep mountain, a mountain that they used to play with when they were kids, the familiar rivers, the mooing of cows and sheep. Many images that many people had forgotten appeared in people's minds. Gradually, there was no sound. Some people were drinking and eating fruits, but now they all stopped. Some people closed their eyes and quietly listened to the deep and sorrowful song. Drip, drip. After a while, a drop of tears slid down. A girl started to cry. Even more people had expressions of longing, sorrow, and worry on their faces. Lu Li's music had dragged them into the song without them realizing it. They were reminded of their childhood, the place where they were born, their hometown, their parents or relatives that had passed away. The most unforgettable thing was their hometown, and the saddest thing was homesickness. Of the 35 female disciples of the Holy Girl sect, more than half joined the Holy Girl sect when they were young. They had been living and cultivating in the Holy Girl sect. After so many years, they had forgotten what their hometown looked like and where they were born. Chapter 2787. Xiang Linglong and Lu Ling had tears running down their cheeks. Lu Ling had a painful expression on her face, and she was trembling. Her memories were sealed. She could have unsealed them, but at this moment, it was as if a Pandora's box had been opened. Countless memories surged into her soul. At this moment, a look of reminiscence appeared on the movie queen's face. She thought of her teenage years, her hometown, her parents who had passed away, and the unforgettable love she had when she was young. However, she was old and experienced, so she didn't show too much emotion. Many great emperors showed no emotion, but they were exclaiming inside. They all knew very well that when Lu Li was playing the guccine, he had used a special law of sound. In this way, there would be a special emotion in his music that could bring people into a certain mood involuntarily. It was true that Lu Li was not good at playing the guccine. But after he integrated the law of sound into his music became special. The law of sound and the Guqin skills were perfectly integrated, which was why such a strange phenomenon could happen. Boom! All of a sudden, the seal on her soul was broken. Countless memories surged into her soul. Finally, she could not hold back her tears, and they flowed down her cheeks. She opened her eyes and looked at Lu Li. She remembered the scenes when she was a child. The two of them depended on each other in the Delong tribe, the northern desert and the Heaven Reverse universe. She was brought back to the tribe from the Heaven Reverse universe. Back then, Lu Li was still a mortal being. A mortal being could become an immortal, go to the divinity, reach the second heaven, and eventually the third heaven, the Dragon Rebel clan, and find her. On this thought, Lu Ling felt like bursting into tears again. She remembered the treasured land near the Dragon Rebel clan. Lu Li said that he was the closest person to her in the world. She could not help but feel sorry for Lu Li when he was trying to find her over the years and how much he had suffered. She was a strong person. The environment she grew up in forced her to be strong. She had no one to rely on. Therefore, she rarely cried. But now, she was crying like a fool. If it were not for the fact that there were so many people here, she would have hugged Lu Li and burst into tears. Brother, she murmured to herself, trying her best to control her emotions. Otherwise, she was afraid that it would affect Lu Li's plan and expose his identity. What she really wanted to do at this moment was for Lu Li to take off his mask and show her that strange yet familiar face. The person closest to me. Lu Ling pursed her lips and smiled. That was right. She hadn't lived with Lu Li for a long time, and they weren't related by blood. But to her, Lu Li was the closest person to her, even closer than a brother or sister. The Dragon Rebel flying team was nice to her. Many elders of the Dragon Rebel tribe were nice to her, too, but she couldn't feel the real familial love. She couldn't feel the kind of sincere affection that would make her sacrifice her life for them. Dong, dong. Lu Li had finally finished playing the Guqin. The last note lingered in the air, leaving many people still in silence. It was only when the movie queen sighed with emotion that countless people came to their senses. The movie queen said, "Good zither, good song, good tune. Phone Wooding, today's first prize should be yours." Many people wiped away their tears and chimed in. Many girls looked at Lu Li with even more passion, as if Lu Li had become their soulmate and touched the softest part of their hearts. "You should be the first prize," Wen Xiang said with admiration. "In terms of talent, I admit defeat. Young Master Feng's music is the most touching song I have ever heard." Many people nodded. Some beauties and some warriors of the great Emperor realm gave him high praise. The movie queen found Lu Li to be more and more pleasing to the eye. Years ago, she almost got together with Feng Wooding's progenitor warrior. Unfortunately, Feng Wooding was rebellious and didn't want to be restrained by the Holy Lady sect. In the end, they were not meant to be. Now, the descendant of her former lover was here, and he was as good as Feng Wooding's progenitor warrior. The movie queen saw the shadow of Feng Wooding in Lu Li. Naturally, she had a different opinion of Lu Li. The movie queen gave Lu Li several pellets on the spot, the best ones of the Holy Lady sect. This caused Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang's eyes to burn with hatred. The banquet was coming to an end. The emperors left first, followed by the patriarchs. Just as Lu Li was about to leave, the Shadow Queen stopped him again. Lu Ling gave Lu Li a meaningful look and left. After everyone was gone, the Shadow Queen asked with a smile, "Wooding, I am curious. Where did you get your source energy?" It wasn't appropriate for the rest to ask, but the movie queen didn't have too many reservations and asked directly. Lu Li hesitated. How would he explain this? The movie queen wasn't an ordinary person. It wouldn't be easy to fool her. As he hesitated, the Shadow Queen chuckled and said, "What? Did your ancestor tell you anything? It can't be spread?" "Forefather?" Lu Li was taken aback. Then he came back to his senses and said with a bitter smile, "Sorry, Shadow Queen. Forefather did tell me that some things cannot be told." Hee hee. The Shadow Empress laughed. She was graceful and oppressive. She said, Then, did your old ancestors say, if I am an outsider? Luli had guessed that the Shadow Queen might be related to Foam Wooding's forefather. The two might be old lovers. Therefore, Luli put on a smile and said, "Of course. How can you be an outsider? You know, as soon as I look at you, I feel a sense of closeness. It's like you are my great-grandmother. You are a cunning little guy. You have a glib tongue." The affection on the Shadow Queen's face grew. She picked up the tea and said, "Work hard and strive for the number one. If you can do that, I will give you a sovereign weapon." What? Luli didn't expect such a pleasant surprise. He stood up at once and thanked. "Thank you, Shadow Queen. When I go back, I will tell my forefather about how nice you are to me. I will ask him to come and thank me in person." Ha ha ha. The movie queen laughed out loud. She laughed so hard that she forgot to ask Luli about what she had wanted to ask. But since Luli said so, the Shadow Queen assumed that it was Foam Wooding who was behind the origin energy. The Shadow Queen waved her hand. Luli thanked her and left. He went back to his own castle. His forehead was covered in sweat. In his eyes, he was also worried. If his identity was exposed, would the Shadow Queen fly into a rage out of humiliation? By then, he wouldn't have a good life. Never mind. Luli shook his head. It was pointless to think about it. He had to win the number one in the final. If he couldn't even win the number one, then it wouldn't matter even if his identity was not exposed. I wonder where Yinzu is. Chapter 2788. Soon a month passed. During this time, many came to invite Lu Li, but he didn't go even once. He didn't even go to those invited by Ling Long and Lu Ling because he didn't know. He had been cultivating all this time. He wouldn't go even if he knew, in case his identity was exposed. As long as he could win the championship, he could marry Ling Long and Ling Long. Then, he could take them away and talk about the old days. He was in no hurry. On the day of the final match, the Mount of Huayong was even livelier. At least 100,000 people were seated on the stands. More patriarchs of different families came as well. There were more than 20 patriarchs of the Great Emperor realm and those from the Holy Girl sect. It was a grand occasion. When Hua Tiandao and the others arrived, they felt the pressure when they saw the huge crowd. With so many people watching, it would be glorious if they could keep winning and at least make it to the top three. On the other hand, it would be humiliating if they failed and ended up in the 4th or 5th place. Of course, as a matter of fact, whether they won or lost, the 5 of them were already famous all over the world. The Holy Girl sect had put up a notice to the world. The real Foam Wooding hadn't even come, but he had already become famous. Admittedly, it was funny. Maybe the real Foam Wooding had already received the news. He was puzzled. How could there be someone with the same name in the world? Extraordinary innate talent and combat strength? Quiet. The patriarch of the Holy Girl sect pressed her hands down and shouted with divine energy. Her voice was loud, and the noises around were silenced. The patriarch of the Holy Girl sect said, after several rounds of competition in the Mount of Huayong, the top 30, top 10, and top 5 have been decided. The prizes have been honored. Now, the final match will begin. Let us wait and see who will be the champion. Now, I will announce the rules of the final match. The patriarch of the Holy Girl sect paused for a moment. Many people held their breaths, afraid to make a sound. How would the final match be conducted? The rules were very important. The patriarch of the Holy Girl sect continued. The rules are simple. We will not compete in the final match. We will climb the Peak of Empress. The first 3 to climb over 10,000 steps will directly enter the top 3. Then, the 2nd and 3rd place will compete with each other. The winner will compete with the champion for the champion of the Mount of Huayong. Peak of Empress? As soon as the patriarch of the Holy Girl sect finished, many people were confused. They did not know much about the Peak of Empress. Was it difficult to climb a peak? The finals were actually going to be like this? This inevitably disappointed many people. They wanted to see super experts fight to the death. You don't know about Empress Peak? That is the most precious treasure of the Saintess sect. The first generation Holy Emperor of the female Holy Sect refined her own body into a supreme treasure after her death. This is a super holy weapon. That's right. It can be said that if there was no Empress Peak, there would be no female sage sect. Not only can this treasure subdue the enemy, it can also nurture the future generations. The number of steps one could climb corresponded to one's realm. It's said that by climbing to the peak of Great Empress Peak, one can become an emperor. I see. This will be interesting. Let's see who can climb to level 10,000 this time. That's right. Where's the Empress Peak? What do we think? The female sage sect will definitely have a way. They won't let us sit here and watch. The discussions in the surroundings became noisy again. That elder raised her hand and shouted, "The competition will begin now. The top 5 contestants, please get ready." The rules this time are that no matter what method you use, you just have to climb up the 10,000 steps with the fastest speed. Of course, you are not allowed to attack each other. You will climb based on your own ability. If anyone attacks you, it will be considered cheating and you will be disqualified. The 5 of them were already prepared, but they didn't know where the Empress Peak was and were somewhat confused. The Shadow Empress smiled as a small mountain peak flew out from her hand and floated in the middle of the stage. So small? The people on the spectator stands looked at each other in dismay, but they quickly reacted. This place should be a world of its own. After entering, they would realize that the Empress Peak was very big. The female sage sect elder pointed to the small mountain peak in midair and said, "Everyone can enter. Once you approach the mountain peak, you will immediately be able to enter. Everyone, I wish you all good luck." A friendly reminder. Be careful when climbing the mountain, as the Empress Peak will automatically attack. All right, Hua Tiandao was the first to rush up. The rest were naturally not to be outdone, as they all rushed towards the mountain peak in midair. When they were close to the mountain peak, the 5 of them were sucked in and turned into 5 humans the size of ants. What was amazing was that when the people on the outside used their divine telekinesis to probe inside, they could easily lock onto the 5 of them and discover the world that the 5 of them were in. It was a boundless mountain. This mountain was like a pyramid, towering into the clouds. There was nothing on top of it, only a winding stone staircase like a path to the heavens. At the moment, the 5 were at the foot of the mountain. In front of them, there was a translucent rune on the staircase, blocking their way. Hua Tiandao had taken out his relic weapon and was about to attack the rune. Let's begin. The Shadow Empress sent out a beam of divine power. The Empress Peak flashed slightly and the invisible barrier disappeared. Hua Tiandao and Dong Ying immediately turned into a sharp arrow that shot upwards. Let's go. When Xiang and Tuing followed them, Luli was not in a hurry. A red glare glowed under his feet as Blood Fairy went underground. This Empress Emperor Mountain is definitely a very powerful treasure. This treasure has powerful god runes. If he could decipher the runes, or even see through some of them, it would be of great help to him. 10,000 stairs would not be easy to climb. Otherwise, this would not be a test. This was the finals. It would not be easy. Luli was not in a hurry. He believed that the one at the front would be at a disadvantage, and it would be miserable. Boom! Just as the thought crossed his mind, Hua Tiandao, who was at the front and had climbed dozens of stairs, was suddenly struck by a ray of white light. Then he fell down and somersaulted in midair. Dong Yang, who was following Hua Tiandao, stopped. He was taken aback. That attack came without any warning. It came from the stairs and hit Hua Tiandao at once. The attack was so fast that Hua Tiandao could not react in time. He was smashed down. He could not have dodged it either. When Xiang and the others were not far away, when they saw this scene, they all stopped in their tracks, and their eyes were filled with contemplation. They knew that the Empress Peak would be difficult to climb. None of them even thought about flying. They had to climb on their feet. However, it was so powerful that they were smashed down after climbing dozens of stairs. What was more, Hua Tiandao was no match for it. Let's go. No matter how difficult it was, they had to try and find a way to solve it. Dong Ying lifted his feet and walked up. When he reached the stone staircase where Hua Tiandao was, his entire body tensed up and his eyes stared straight ahead. He waited for a moment and realized that there was no attack. He was overjoyed and continued to climb up. However, he had just climbed up 3 steps when a ray of white light flashed. Dong Ying rolled down as well. The momentum brought him back to the foot of the mountain, and he rolled to Lu Li's side. How the hell are we going to climb? Dong Ying was dumbfounded, and so were the others. There seemed to be no pattern to the attacks on the stone stairs, and they were horribly powerful. You wouldn't be hurt now, but you would be back to square one. There was no way to have a good time. This is strange. Lu Li didn't move. He stood at the foot of the mountain and put on a meaningful smile. The rules of the game seemed to be more favorable to him. Chapter 2789. The Peak of Goddess Empress was the most important treasure of the Holy Lady sect. It was made from the remains of the first Holy Emperor of the Holy Lady sect. Under the refinement of countless powerful warriors of the Holy Lady sect, the treasure became more and more powerful. If the Shadow Queen released this treasure, she could defeat almost all the great Emperor Realm warriors. If a Holy Emperor were to use this treasure, he or she could defeat an average one, provided that the opponent didn't have such a treasure. The inner disciples of the Holy Lady sect had all gone to the Peak of Goddess Empress, but the outer disciples rarely had this chance. Outsiders didn't know anything about the Peak of Goddess Empress. For many people, this was the first time they had seen it. Therefore, the people outside became lively again after they found out what was going on inside. People were discussing, speculating, doubting, predicting. Those inside didn't give up just because the stairs were hard to climb. Wen Xiang and Tuing moved on after Dong Yang was smashed down. Since the attacks here could not hurt people, they could try again and again to find a way out. Boom! Wen Xiang was smashed away by a ray of white light after he went up more than 80 steps. Tuing went up a few more steps and was smashed down again. But everyone's eyes glowed. Every time they were smashed away, they could go up a few more steps. If they were smashed down, they could go up again and again. In this case, it wouldn't be difficult to reach 10,000 steps. Whoosh, Hua Tiandao and Dong Ying flew up at once. They were at the top of their speed since they couldn't be hurt. It didn't matter if they were smashed down. They just had to keep going. Boom! As expected, there were more than 10 steps up. Hua Tiandao was smashed down. Dong Yang was also smashed down after he went up more than 10 steps. An interesting scene appeared on the Peak of Goddess Empress. For people kept going up, and then they were smashed down one by one. After they were smashed down, they kept going. They were very fast, and they took turns to go up. Soon, they were on the 300 steps. Wait a minute. After Hua Tiandao was smashed down again, he looked at Lu Li, who was watching on the side. He said coldly, "Why don't you go up? We are working so hard, and you're just here to watch? Are you going to take advantage of us?" Boom! Dong Yang was knocked down. Seeing that Hua Tiandao didn't go up but stared at Lu Li, he said, "Feng Wooding, why don't you go up? Do you want to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor?" Hee hee. Lu Li smiled and said, "You can stand here. Nobody is forcing you to go up. I'll give you guys the chance to get into the top 3. Isn't that good?" "Shameless," Hua Tiandao sneered. "If you want to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor, then sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. What's the point of talking about righteousness and pretending to be noble? I've never seen someone as shameless as you." "Ha ha!" Lu Li laughed and said, "How old are you? There are so many people you haven't seen. You're just a flower in a greenhouse. How much of the world have you seen? All right, don't talk nonsense. Let's continue. Don't talk nonsense." You, Hua Tiandao, was enraged again. His eyes were about to spit fire. He said with a murderous aura, "Feng Wooding, don't be too arrogant. Do you really think that no one can deal with you?" "Yes." Lu Li nodded seriously and then said, "But others can. You can't." Courting death, Hua Tiandao flew into a rage again. He was so short-tempered that he almost picked up his saber and cut Lu Li. Dong Yang didn't try to persuade Hua Tiandao. Instead, he added fuel to the fire. "Feng Wooding, don't think you are invincible just because you won against young Master Hua once. How much source energy do you have left? Think about it. Can you go back alive after you leave the Holy Girl sect?" "Ha ha ha." Lu Li laughed and said, "I don't care if I can go back alive or not. But in the Holy Girl sect, I can't suppress you too. You don't like it? You can have a try." Crack, crack, crack! Hua Tiandao was gnashing his teeth. Dong Yang was enraged as well. But the two of them were rational. They knew that if they fought here, it would be against the rules, and they would be eliminated directly. We will endure it. Dong Yang and Hua Tiandao looked at each other. They ignored Lu Li and kept on going up. Both of them understood that Lu Li was goading them. He was trying to provoke them into fighting. They didn't want to quarrel with Lu Li anymore. They were afraid that they could not hold back their anger. Young masters, don't run too fast. Don't fall. Lu Li shouted from behind, imitating the tone of the two elders. The two paused and almost fell to the ground. They took a deep breath and kept on going, paying no attention to Lu Li. On the other side, Wen Xiang and Tuing were knocked down as well. They could vaguely hear Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang bickering with Lu Li. Neither of them said anything to Lu Li, even though they were confused. Lu Li didn't have to rush up because it was pointless. He believed that it would be easy to go up 1,000 or 2,000 levels. But the higher he went, the more difficult it would be. He must observe and think about how to solve the problem. Blood Fairy had gone to investigate. It would not be easy to find a solution in a short time. If the patterns here were so easy to solve, then the Peak of Empress wouldn't be the most powerful artifact of the Holy Maiden sect. The finals would be meaningless. The four of them kept on going up. Even though they were being knocked down, it seemed that the patterns here were one-time attacks. Once they were used, there would be no more attacks. That was to say, when one of them was knocked down, the others could go up. 400, 500, 800. The four of them were moving fast. The stone stairs were not restricted by gravity. In less than an hour, they had reached the 800th step. The four of them were relieved. This Peak of Empress didn't seem to be that scary. Maybe they could climb up to 10,000 steps. It all depended on luck. 1,000 steps must be a hurdle. Lu Li said to himself. The first few steps should not be too difficult. But after 1,000, the difficulty would increase. Someone might get hurt. Hua Tiandao and the others, however, didn't care. They continued to rush upwards in turns. Since Lu Li didn't move, Wen Xiang and Tuing were unhappy with him. Lu Li clearly wanted to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. 1,000 steps. Hua Tiandao finally crossed the 1,000th step. He was a bit nervous and stopped at the top of the 1,000th step. After a while, he made sure that there were no more attacks. Then, he walked up again. Swish! All of a sudden, 3 rays of light shot out and hit Hua Tiandao. Hua Tiandao's armor was torn apart, and he was smashed away. Blood gushed out from his mouth as he fell to the ground behind Lu Li. The others looked at each other, speechless. How come the attacks of the Peak of Empress were so much stronger? Hua Tiandao couldn't stand it anymore, and he was injured. More importantly, this was 1,000 steps. How could they climb to 10,000? Would it be able to tear them to shreds in an instant? But on second thought, the Holy Maiden sect would control the attacks and not kill them. But in this case, did he have to be injured for hundreds of times before he could climb up? He had to heal every time. At this rate, wouldn't it take them years to climb up the Peak of Empress? There must be a trick. Lu Li's eyes flickered. It was difficult to climb up with brute force. They had to master the trick and find a way. Otherwise, even if they were injured for hundreds of times, they still wouldn't make it to the top. P.S. I will drive back to my hometown at night. I have 2 chapters to write through the night. I will update at 8 a.m. sharp tomorrow. Chapter 2790. Every step was about the same. There was nothing wrong with the Empress Peak. Lu Li used psychic power to check the entire Empress Peak several times, but found nothing out of the ordinary. When the Empress Peak was attacking, Lu Li also checked carefully. Those attacked were soundless, and there were no signs or ripples of divine glyphs. Lu Li couldn't tell anything from these. Lu Li was deep in thought, and so were the others. It would be hard for the Empress Peak to reach 10,000 steps with brute force. They needed to find some tricks and techniques. Let me try. Wen Xiang released a skill after some thoughts. He waved his hands and attracted earth elements from all directions. Then he made some mud golems. Those mud golems were tall and mighty. They were glowing in a golden glow. They must be strong in defense. Go! when Xiang waved his hand and the mud golems rushed up at a fast speed. One of the mud golems reached the top of the 1,000 steps. Hua Tiandao's position was not attacked. The clay man continued to rush up, and very soon he had reached the 1,200-odd stone steps. He was still not attacked by the light pillar, nor was he blocked by anything. At this moment, he was still rushing up with ease. Soon, a group of mud golems had reached the top of the 2,000 steps. Everyone's eyes dimmed. Clearly, the mud golems could not trigger the attacks of the Empress Peak. It was not feasible to use the mud golems to pave the way, but it was understandable. This skill of making mud golems was not advanced. Everyone could understand it. If they could use the mud golems to pave the way, then everyone could reach the top easily. It was said that anyone who could reach the top would have abilities comparable to an Emperor Realm warrior. Wouldn't everyone be an Emperor Realm warrior? Let me try. Tuing took out a small hall. It was a spatial artifact. The hall glowed, and then many small black beasts came out. These little beasts were very cute. They had a single horn, and they looked like pets. Go! Tuing waved her hand, and the beasts rushed out at a fast speed. One of the beasts reached the 1,000th step. After more than a dozen steps, several rays of white light appeared. The beast was hit and turned into a mist of blood. Everyone's eyes glowed. When the second beast reached this step without triggering the divine glyphs, Tuing and the others smiled. Boom! The second small beast was killed after climbing up a dozen steps. Then, the third small beast continued to climb up. Each small beast could climb up a dozen steps. Not bad. When Xiang controlled the clay men to fly down to avoid affecting the little critters, he walked to Tu Ying's side and asked, Young Master Tu, how many of these little critters do you have? You've really helped us a lot this time. Not much. Tu Ying forced a smile and said, There are only about 300 of them. They're the offspring of a strange beast that I accidentally discovered last time. I wanted to bring them back to cultivate, but since they're useful, I'll use them all. Over 300, everyone felt that it was a bit of a pity. If there were tens of thousands of them, they would be of great help to everyone. The little beasts opened a path in front, and they hurried along at the back. The little beasts kept on rushing upwards when Xiang, Tu Ying, Dong Yang, and the wild eagle followed closely behind. Hua Tiandao had been injured just now and was sitting cross-legged below to heal. But Luli didn't move at all. He was waiting for news from Blood Fairy. He did not expect her to decipher the runes on the weapon. He only hoped that she could give him some pointers so that he could reach 10,000 steps. As long as Mount Empress did not attack, Luli could climb up to 100,000 steps in the time for a few breaths, let alone 10,000. Therefore, it was okay to let them go first. As long as they were not over 9,000 steps, Luli could catch up with them. After a while, Luli decided to sit down and use the trace of Dao to sense the movements of Mount Empress when they were attacking. He wanted to help Blood Fairy find the way up. I can sense the runes. If Luli tried to sense it, he would be able to sense it. The runes on Mount Empress were well hidden. They were not on the surface, but inside. Outsiders could not see the runes. Psychic power would be cut off, and they could not see what was going on inside the Mount Empress. There are so many runes here. Luli tried to sense carefully. Every time there was an attack, there would be many runes in the Mount Empress. The divine inscriptions on the Empress Peak were like human blood vessels. They densely filled the entire mountain. As the small beasts died one by one, the three of them were on the 1,800 steps. Hua Tiandao was getting impatient. His wounds were not serious. He had recovered after a while. Hua Tiandao was a little anxious. His injuries weren't too serious. After recuperating for a while, he had already recovered a little. They used the small beasts to lead the way up. Luli seemed to have fallen asleep. He sat at the foot of the mountain, not moving. He was not worried, but many others were. There were 10,000 steps in total. They had climbed nearly 2,000 steps. Was he going to be the last? At the 2,000 steps, a small beast was suddenly attacked by 10 rays of light. That beast could not last for the time for one breath. It was crushed into dust. Not even a mist of blood was left behind. Level 2,000. After a small beast went up, it was suddenly attacked by 10 beams of light. That small beast couldn't even last for a breath of time and directly turned into dust. Not even a mist of blood was left behind. It was obvious that the Great Emperor's Peak's attacks had increased once again after climbing the 2,000 stone steps. It was unknown if they would launch a second round of attacks. Tu-Ing continued to control the small beasts to move up. After realizing that Mount Empress's attacks were only for one round, everyone was delighted. Even though there were more than 100 small beasts left, they could easily climb another 1,000 steps based on the previous situation. Hua Tiandao snorted when he saw that Lu Li was still sitting with his legs crossed. This guy wants to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. I hope that when he comes up, Mount Empress's attacks will continue. That will be fun. Dong Yang, Wen Xiang, and Tu-Ing didn't like Lu Li at all. They were competitors to begin with. Nobody would be happy if Lu Li wanted to take advantage without doing anything. The group of people continued to advance. After all the small beasts were killed, everyone rushed up nearly 3,000 stone steps. When the last small beast was killed, Tu-Ing shrugged helplessly and said, "I don't have a choice." "Do you have more beasts like this?" "I do," Dong Yang said, "but there is only one. Its defense is strong. I wonder how long it can last." "Go a try." Hua Tiandao cupped his fists and said, "Regardless of the ranking, we will compensate you in young master too." "That's not necessary," Dong Yang said with a smile. "We are all friends. Why do we have to be so unscrupulous? We all want to fight for the first place. We will do our best and compete fairly. Whether we win or lose, we are all friends. As long as we don't end up like some people, it will be fine, right?" "Yes, yes," Hua Tiandao immediately echoed. Wen Xiang and Tu-Ing nodded. At this moment, the four of them suddenly became united against a common enemy because of Lu Li, right? Chapter 2791. The other three thought about it and agreed that it was not against the rules. They didn't attack Lu Li. All they did was set up some divine patterns and some secret measures. Lu Li was down there and didn't come up. He wanted to take advantage of the situation. Dong Yang thought about it and said again, "Let's each do some small divine patterns and see what happens. So many powerful warriors are watching us out there. If the Holy Lady sect thinks we have broken the rules, we can stop and let it go. I don't think the Holy Lady sect will disqualify all four of us just because of Feng Wooding." They all nodded in agreement. They all knew what the discussion of Dao and Huayang was really about. The competition was just a means. The real purpose was that the Holy Lady sect wanted to select the best talents and disciples of the most powerful forces to form a marriage alliance with them. If they offended all of them, then what would be the point of the discussion of Dao and Huayang? The four of them were all core disciples of major sections. In the future, they would become leaders of the four sections. Forming a marriage alliance with the four of them would bring great benefits to the Holy Lady sect. Of course, the four of them wanted to form a marriage alliance with the Holy Lady sect. For one thing, the beauties of the Holy Lady sect were too attractive. For another, they needed the support of the Holy Lady sect. They needed not only the support of elixirs and resources, but also the secret operation of the Holy Lady sect to help them become leaders of the sect. This was a win-win situation. The Holy Lady sect would have a closer relationship with the other forces, which would lay a good foundation for them to fight against the Heaven Emperor sect. The four of them would not only gain the beauties and rewards, but also the support of the Holy Lady sect, which would help them rise up quickly and stand at the peak of the endless abyss. Therefore, the four of them were sure that the leaders of the Holy Lady sect would turn a blind eye even if they played some tricks. As long as they did not attack Lu Li openly, everything would be fine. Hua Tiandao hated Lu Li the most. He didn't even think about moving up. He took out several beads and threw them down. The more than a dozen beads glowed as they rolled down and then disappeared. The beads contained strong energy. Usually, they would be led into the ground. Once someone approached, the beads would come out and attack. Those with weak defense would be blasted to death. Dong Ying thought for a moment and smiled. He quietly waved his sleeve, and a black powder flew out and fell on the stone stairs below. The smoke was no different from normal smoke, but it was a highly toxic substance that could silently float into a martial practitioner's body and quickly corrode their divine power. He had used this smoke in a previous battle, and it was very powerful. However, if someone knew of such a method, they would be fine as long as they avoided it in advance and did not touch it. The fact that Dong Yang was able to advance all the way was due to the smoke. It seemed that Lu Li was sitting down there with his legs crossed. Actually, he had been using the trace of Dao to sense what was going on above. He noticed what Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang had done. Lu Li frowned. He did not expect them to be so shameless. Wen Xiang and Tu Ying, on the other hand, didn't do anything. They wanted to wait and see if the Saintess Sect's experts would stop them. Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang looked at each other nervously. After waiting for a while without any movement, the two of them were completely relieved. Dong Ying took out an armored Kuei ox from his spatial artifact. This was once one of his mounts and also one of his secret treasures. It was a vicious beast with combat strength comparable to a mid-stage lord. This was a gift from his master, who took him to tame in person. This armored Kuei ox was large, but Dong Yang made it smaller. The Kuei ox let out a cry and rushed up slowly. It had just climbed more than a dozen steps when a white glare lit up above. Then 10 attacks came at it. Boom! The iron-armored Kuei ox was blasted down, and Dong Yang had already prepared a divine ability. An invisible net condensed in midair, trapping the iron-armored Kuei ox. Good. They took a look at the armored Kuei ox and found that it was not seriously injured. It was just that some scales on its chest were broken, and it was bleeding. Dong Yang fed the armored Kuei ox a pellet at once. The armored Kuei ox's wounds began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everyone was overjoyed to see this. It seemed that the armored Kuei ox could hold on for some time. Brother Dong Yang, Hua Tiandao said in a heroic manner, "Just let your Kuei ox go up. I have many healing pellets. As long as it is not dead, we can save it." Wen Xiang and Tu Ying nodded. Dong Yang smiled and waved his hand to let the Kuei ox continue to rush up. The Kuei ox roared and rushed up, but was knocked down again and again. Dong Yang and the others kept feeding it the pellets. The Kuei ox was strong in defense. It rushed all the way up, and soon it reached the stairs of 3,000 steps. Along the way, Tu Ying and Wen Xiang made their moves secretly. They set up some ingenious divine glyphs or some wretched traps. The traps were well hidden. If one was not careful, one would fall into their trap. Nobody from the Holy Lady sect came in to send a message. It seemed that nobody had noticed. How could they not notice when so many great Emperor Realm warriors were watching? As a matter of fact, not only great Emperor Realm warriors, even regular lords had noticed what was going on. Some patriarchs of the Holy Lady sect asked the Shadow Queen if she should stop them, but she shook her head gently. Hua Tiandao and the others were right. The Shadow Queen had changed her opinion of Lu Li, but it didn't mean that she would disregard the position of the Holy Lady sect. The purpose of the Forum of Huayang was to make connections through marriage. That was to unite with more forces and marry the best girls of their families to disciples of the major families, and then help the disciples to rise up. When these outstanding disciples became the upper echelons of a big sect, that sect would naturally be tightly tied with the female sage sect. Feng Wuding was a genius, no doubt about that. But the Feng family behind him was not particularly strong. The progenitor warrior of the Feng family was only at the great Emperor realm. Strong as he was, there was no hope for him to reach the Saint Emperor realm. This had been confirmed. Therefore, the Feng family alone was not worth the Holy Lady sect's full effort to rope in. If they were to offend the other four for the sake of Feng Wuding, then the loss would outweigh the gain. Lu Li didn't go up himself. He could not blame others. If he had gone up at the very beginning, it would be hard for others to plot against him. He wanted to reap the benefits without doing anything. Then he could not blame others for setting up traps for him. Lu Li didn't care about the traps the others had set up. This was because he had sensed all the traps set up by these people. He knew how to set them up and where they were. In that case, they wouldn't be called traps anymore. More importantly, just now, Blood Fairy sent a message. She had made some headway in her investigation of the Peak of Empress. She had made some progress. Given more time, she might not be able to solve the runes on the Peak of Empress, but at least she could point Luli in the right direction. Chapter 2792. Led by an iron-armored Kuei ox, the group moved forward slowly. Luli sat down with his legs crossed and didn't move. The onlookers were bored. They had been looking forward to a bloody battle between the geniuses. Little did they expect that it would be a boring climb. More importantly, they couldn't show their abilities. There was nothing to see if they could only rely on an iron-armored Kuei to clear the way. Uh-huh. A patriarch of the Holy Lady sect smiled. All of a sudden, she said in a low voice, "Those are just appetizers. The real test will come after the 5,000 steps. By then, you'll have a good time." The words of the patriarch of the Holy Lady sect were spread around. The onlookers became more alert. Patriarchs of the Holy Lady sect would not talk nonsense. They believed that the Peak of Empress would not be so boring. They used the iron-armored Kuei ox to clear the way. The iron-armored Kuei ox was strong in defense. More importantly, the iron-armored Kuei ox's self-healing ability was impressive. Of course, they were running out of elixirs as well. Every time they went up, they had to use one to heal the iron-armored Kuei ox. Hua Tiandao and Wen Xiang had many elixirs. Some were given by their sects and families, and some were obtained by themselves. They had more than enough in their interspatial rings. With the support of a large number of elixirs, the iron-armored Kuei ox would recover quickly every time it was injured. After it was healed, the iron-armored Kuei ox would move on. The onlookers followed it in a comfortable way. Along the way, they would accidentally sprinkle some dust and beads to set up some runes. An hour later, they had climbed more than 4,000 steps. Seeing that Luli still hadn't moved, the onlookers sneered. There were thousands of steps. Even if the Peak of Empress did not attack, it would still be impossible for Luli to climb up. They had set up so many traps that it would take Luli a long time to clear them all. Dong Yang and Hua Tiandao hoped that Luli would stay in closed-door cultivation. By the time they reached the 9,000 steps, Luli would have to watch them climb up to the 10,000 steps. After reaching rank 4,000, Empress Peak's attacks became even more ferocious. Every time the Kuei ox was hit, it would take half an incense stick of time to recover. Hence, its progress became slower. Everyone felt that after rank 5,000, the Kuei ox would be useless. By the time everyone reached the 5,000 level, there would be countless divine inscriptions and traps set up by them. If the Kuei ox wasn't there, and they were all blasted down, it would be extremely difficult for them to climb back up. Wouldn't that be akin to shooting themselves in the foot? However, they had already come this far, and they had no way out. They could only brace themselves and move forward. The Kuei ox continued to advance. When it reached the 5,000th level, it suddenly felt like it couldn't go any further. Its speed was like that of a snail, and in a few breaths of time, it had only advanced 2 levels. There's a strong gravity. Everyone's expressions became serious. 5,000 was half the number, so it was definitely a hurdle. Everyone had expected it to be difficult, but they hadn't expected it to be this difficult. Even the Kuei ox with such great power couldn't move it. So how could they move it? After driving it a few times, Dong Ying gave up and put the Kuei ox away. Everyone gritted their teeth and walked towards the 5,000th stone staircase. The moment they stepped on the stone staircase, their waists suddenly sank. They felt like they were being suppressed by a huge mountain. What a terrifying gravity! The few of them looked at each other, and their expressions became unnatural. The gravity was too strong. Although they could still move with difficulty, it had to be known that this was the 5,000th stone staircase. How were they going to continue on? "Let's go," Hua Tiandao shouted, and took the lead to rush up. The gravity here was very strong, and with every step he took, he had to gasp for breath. At the same time, he was extremely nervous. He was afraid that if a few beams of white light shot out, they would be sent flying. At that time, all their efforts would be in vain. 1 level, 10 levels, 15 levels. Hua Tiandao suddenly felt the ground tremble slightly. Then, a bolt of lightning came down from the sky and struck Hua Tiandao. Hua Tiandao was originally scared out of his wits, but when he realized it was lightning, he was immediately overjoyed. He didn't take it head-on, but a saber appeared in his hand and slashed out a black saber chi. Swish, the saber chi swept out and collided with the lightning. It actually annihilated the lightning. After the lightning disappeared, the other three revealed expressions of joy. As long as it wasn't that white pillar of light, the other attacks were easy to deal with. This was because the white pillar of light would directly blast people down. They had all set up divine patterns and traps behind them. If they were blasted down, they would all have a headache. It seems like after the 5,000th level, everyone's battle prowess will be tested. Everyone had a rough idea of what to do. Wen Xiang quickly followed. When he reached the stone staircase that Hua Tiandao was on, the ground shook as well. Then, huge meteors fell from the sky. The group of people were all happy and completely at ease. Wen Xiang took out his divine weapon and released a few attacks in succession, shattering all the meteors. Dong Ying and Tuing both followed up and activated their divine patterns. A few black spears shot out from the sky, as well as streaks of saber light. They were all destroyed by the two of them. Let's go. The four of them were all fighting Gaolong. As long as they weren't blasted off the mountain, they didn't care about the other attacks. Their powerful battle prowess was also put to use. Otherwise, if the previous white pillar of light continued, they wouldn't be able to display their strength. Now, it was a test of everyone's battle prowess. Those with strong battle prowess could easily break the divine pattern attacks and advance quickly. Those with weak battle prowess would find it difficult to advance. They had to think of a way to break the attacks. The four of them increased their speed. Although the gravity here was so strong that even the armored Koei ox couldn't move forward, it was still bearable for them. If the gravity continued like this, they would probably be able to climb the 8,000th to 9,000th stone staircase in less than half a day. Of course, the prerequisite was that Empress Peak's attacks didn't increase. Boom, 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 the four of them kept activating the divine patterns. All kinds of attacks came one after another. This way, the viewing value was much higher. The 100,000 spectators outside were all interested. This was more fun. It was both enjoyable and interesting. Seeing the four of them releasing all kinds of powerful attacks and blocking Empress Peak's attacks, not only could this test their battle prowess, but could also broaden the horizons of the people outside. Meteorites, rolling stones, thunderbolts, flames, blades of wind, dragons of water, vines, all kinds of attacks came one after another. The four's battle prowess was on full display. The four of them released all kinds of means to break the formations and move forward. In an hour, they had each blocked nearly 100 attacks and had climbed more than 1,000 stone stairs. Currently, Hua Tiandao and Wen Xiang were at the front. Dong Yang was third and Tuing was fourth. There were only dozens of stone stairs between the four of them. Hua Tiandao was humiliated when he was defeated by Lu Li. Even though he hadn't fully recovered yet, he was still charging forward with all his might. His powerful battle prowess was on full display at this moment. All the attacks from Empress Peak could be fended off or blocked by him. 6 hours had passed, and the four of them had climbed up to 7,000 stone stairs. Even though the attacks were more powerful, they were still moving forward. Lu Li, on the other hand, didn't move. He sat at the foot of the mountain with his legs crossed, like an old monk in meditation. What is Lu Li doing? Chapter 2793. Of course, Lu Li was not going to admit defeat. He was not nervous either. He had been in this situation many times in his life. The first 7 or 8,000 steps were not that important. He believed that the last 1,000 would be the most difficult, more difficult than the previous 9,000 steps combined. Clearly, the difficulty of Empress Peak would increase with every 1,000 steps. They were only at 7,000. Lu Li believed it would take them at least half a month to reach the next 2,000. He trusted Blood Fairy very much. Since Blood Fairy said that there was progress, then he would just wait patiently. He did not sit still. Instead, he cultivated source energy. Time moved on. The others were still struggling. Tu Ying was injured and had to stop to tend to her wounds. Compared to the others, Tu Ying's abilities were weaker. It was not surprising that she was at the back. Hua Tiandao and Wen Xiang were the strongest in all aspects, so they were at the front. Dong Yang was in a hurry. The thing was, being impatient was not going to help. If he did not fight hard, he would be injured soon and Tu Ying would catch up with him. Third place is okay. Dong Yang comforted himself. If he could get third place, he would be able to fight against the second place and eventually compete with the first place for the championship. He still had a chance. If he could only get fourth place, he would be eliminated directly. First place, I want first place. Hua Tiandao was ambitious. Now that he had a chance to regain the glory he had lost, he would not let it go to waste. What was more, the first place had a great advantage. The second place and the third place would have to fight against the first place. If there was no time to rest, it would be a great advantage. Therefore, Hua Tiandao was working hard. Even though his wounds were not healed, he was still as ferocious as before. He was more than 200 steps ahead of Wen Xiang. Wen Xiang, on the other hand, was not in a hurry. Dong Yang and Tu Ying were not in a hurry either. Tu Ying never thought about fighting for the top three. He knew that even if he could get to third place, he could not win first place. If so, why should he work so hard? He would be satisfied if he could make it to the top 5. Boom, boom, boom. When Hua Tiandao reached 8,000 steps, a thunderbolt fell from the sky along with more than a dozen wind blades. Hua Tiandao shattered the thunderbolt, but could not stand the wind blades. He was hit by the wind blades and rolled down 30 steps. Hua Tiandao's armor had been torn apart, and his chest was covered in crisscrossed, bloody wounds. He spat out a mouthful of blood, thinking that he had been too impatient. He should have stopped at the 7,999 step. Every 1,000 steps would increase his attack power. This was common sense, but he had still been too impulsive. Behind him, Wen Xiang and Hua Tiandao both smiled faintly. Hua Tiandao was too impatient. How could an impatient person eat hot tofu? Hua Tiandao had not fully recovered from his injuries. Now it was like adding hail to snow. Hua Tiandao did not dare to continue walking up. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground and began to refine the divine medicine to heal his injuries. Wen Xiang and Dong Yang quickly walked up. The two of them spent more than an hour to surpass Hua Tiandao. Although Hua Tiandao was very anxious, he knew that if he did not recover from his injuries, it would be impossible for him to climb the 10,000 steps. He might as well recuperate first, and when his injuries were healed, he would rush up in one go. Wen Xiang and Dong Yang did not wait for him. The two of them easily climbed the 8,000 steps. Because the two of them were more careful, they successfully withstood the attacks from Empress Peak. However, after reaching the 8,000 step, every 10 steps would be abnormally difficult. They would have to endure very powerful attacks. As long as they could keep going up, everything else was not important. So what if they had to suffer a little? There were 100,000 people watching outside. Even if they were in pain, they would not show it. This was a good opportunity to make a name for themselves. It might even become a legend that would spread throughout the endless divine ruins. The two of them slowed down as they walked up step by step. They would stop to rest after walking for a period of time to recover their stamina and energy. It was not easy for them to reach the 8,000 step. The two of them did not want to be blasted down and start all over again. Time passed quickly, and 3 days had passed. The two of them had already climbed the 8,400 steps. Tu Ying had long surpassed Hua Tiandao, but Hua Tiandao had been very calm these past few days. He was as steady as Mount Tai as he continued to recuperate. Today, he finally got up. He turned into a rainbow light and rushed up. After 3 days of recuperation, his injuries were completely healed. He rapidly climbed up the steps and quickly chased after the three of them. The spectator stands outside were bustling with noise. This was the scene they wanted to see. The few experts were chasing each other and competing with each other. This was a fun part. Right now, Wen Xiang was temporarily ranked first. He had already reached the 8,490th step. Dong Yang was right behind him and was only 70 or 80 steps away. Tu Ying was slightly behind and had only reached the 8,100th step. After Hua Tiandao recovered from his injuries, he was very ferocious. He chased all the way and was much more stable. After spending a day, he caught up to Tu Ying. After spending 3 days, he caught up to Dong Yang. Dong Yang was very vexed. His combat strength was still lacking, and he did not have that many treasures on him. There was still a gap between him and Hua Tiandao. He was also injured, and his movements were naturally affected. It had been almost 5 or 6 days since the finals began, but the spectators were not impatient at all. Those who could come here were at least at the 5th tribulation. For them, 10 days or half a month was just a blink of an eye. They could even watch for a month. The key was that they wanted to enjoy themselves. Another 5 days passed. Wan Xiang, who was at the front, had reached the 8,900th step. Hua Tiandao was in 2nd place with more than 8,700 steps. Dong Yang was in 3rd place with more than 8,600 steps. Tu Ying was in last place with more than 8,400 steps. Lu Li, who had made Xiang Linglong lose hope, was still at the foot of the mountain. He seemed to be sleeping. Many people had forgotten about Lu Li as well. They thought he had given up. Otherwise, he would have taken action by now, when Xiang was about to reach the 9,000th step. Not to mention the runes and traps along the way. It would take a long time to climb after the 5,000th step. Even if Lu Li could reach the 5,000th step, he might not be able to catch up. After another 4 days, when Xiang finally set foot on the 9,000th step, and he stood firmly on the 9,000th step, the attacks here were many times stronger than at the 8,000th step, but when Xiang managed to stand it. Almost at the same time, Lu Li opened his eyes as well. His eyes glowed. He looked up at those who seemed to be floating in the clouds and put on a gentle smile. Today, Blood Fairy finally sent a message. She had found a good path for Lu Li, a shortcut, a path to heaven. Lu Li had cultivated some source energy during this time, and he was at the peak of his condition. He said to Blood Fairy, tell me, how do we go up? It's simple. Blood Fairy answered, just fly up. Fly up 5,000 steps in one go. Fly up. Chapter 2794. Yes, Blood Fairy said with certainty, I don't want you to fly up. You have to fly along the stairs. Don't worry. I will help you to suppress the attacks. You just have to fly up. That artifact spirit won't have any objections. Even though Lu Li trusted Blood Fairy, he still had to ask for more information. Blood Fairy explained, Master, don't worry. I have talked to the artifact spirit. This time, no matter what methods you use, you just have to climb up to 10,000 steps. I can crack the runes. That is one of the methods. The artifact spirit will not mind. Of course, I cannot destroy the runes of the Holy Lady's Peak, or else the artifact spirit will fight me. I think so. Lu Li remembered the patriarch of the Holy Lady's Peak had said something like that. Everything was fine as long as one could climb up to 10,000 steps. If anyone could crack the runes of the Peak of Empress, or even refine the Peak of Empress, then it was up to them. If so, Lu Li didn't have to worry too much. His body directly soared into the air and slowly flew towards the stone stairs. As soon as he moved, he alarmed those outside. Many people had forgotten about his existence and only came back to their senses when he moved. Feng Wooding is moving. He is moving. Ha ha ha. What is the point of him moving now? When Xiang and the others have climbed up to 9,000 steps, is he going to find trouble for himself? This guy is funny. He didn't move before, and now he is getting impatient. I think by the time he reaches 5,000 steps, when Xiang and Hua Tiandao will have reached 10,000. Ha ha, ha. The great-grandson of Freak Feng is also a freak. This is hilarious. What? He's flying. He's actually flying toward the sky? What? What did you say? Flying? The people outside were in an uproar. However, after a moment of discussion, they all quieted down. Many people's mouths were wide open. Countless people's faces were filled with disbelief, but even more people's eyes were filled with bewilderment, because Lu Li flew up along the stone stairs. In an instant, he had reached the 400th stair. Previously, when Xiang, Hua Tiandao, and company did not fly up because no one dared to, Even the people outside had a subconscious understanding. Flying was not allowed on Great Emperor's Peak. If not, what was the point of climbing? Couldn't he just fly straight to level 10,000? 10,000 stone steps were only several thousand feet long, and they could climb it in an instant. If the Emperor's Peak could be easily flown up, then what was the point of testing? The female sage sect wouldn't leave such a flaw, or else they would become a laughingstock. But now, Luli was flying up with ease. He did not fly in a straight line. He was flying along the stairs, almost sticking to them, but flying was still flying. His feet did not touch the stone stairs. This, not only the 100,000 spectators outside, but also the disciples and elders of the Saintist sect were a bit confused, especially those elders who were very familiar with Emperor's Peak. They had barged into it countless times. They had also tried to fly in the past, but they did not encounter any unexpected powerful attacks. One cannot fly up Emperor's Peak, so they could only walk up step by step. This was the acknowledged common sense of the Saintist sect. Now, this common sense was broken by Luli. Luli flew up gently. When he flew, he was accompanied by the wind. The group of patriarchs looked at the great emperors of the Saintist sect and the Shadow Queen. The great emperors were surprised as well. The Shadow Queen's eyes glowed. Then she closed her eyes and began to sense. What is going on? Did Phone Wooding cheat? Yes, he must have cheated. Otherwise, how could he fly up so easily? Is Phone Wooding the predetermined number one? This is not fair to Hua Tiandao and Wen Xiang. If he really cheated, then this seminar of Hua Yang will be a joke. Many people were discussing. The patriarchs of the Saintist sect were getting anxious, but they dared not to say anything. They looked at the Shadow Queen, waiting for her response. Silence. The Shadow Queen suddenly shouted, "I have communicated with the artifact spirit of the Emperor's Peak, and I have checked. I can tell you this, nobody cheated. Phone Wooding can fly up because of his abilities. He has cracked part of the runes of the Emperor's Peak. When we set the rules, we said that no means are allowed to climb up the Emperor's Peak. As long as one can climb up to 10,000 steps, it will be fine. So, I declare that Phone Wooding did not cheat. The contest will continue." What? He cracked the runes? Those are runes of the Emperor's Peak. Yes, the Emperor's Peak is the most valuable treasure of the Saintist sect. It is a holy weapon. How can he crack the runes on it? Are you sure this is not a joke? No wonder he didn't move. I didn't know that he was cracking the runes. At the fifth tribulation realm, his body is strong, his soul attack is amazing, and he has source energy. Now, he can even crack the runes on a holy weapon. Is there anything he can't do? The descendant of Weirdo Phone is as strange as he is. In such a short time, he has climbed up more than 1,000 steps. Is he going to fly all the way to 10,000 steps? That would be a big joke. Will Hua Tiandao and the others die from anger? They have set up so many traps and runes for nothing. Phone Wooding is not even close to the ground. Those traps cannot be triggered. This seminar with Hua Yang has really broadened my horizons. The words of the Shadow Queen were credible. Given her realm and abilities, she would not lie. Therefore, the group trusted her. The tone of their conversation changed. They were all exclaiming and exclaiming. Luli was flying up at a moderate speed. He was almost at the 2,000 step. Blood Fairy did not lie to him. He did not trigger any runes on the way. It was easy. There were many traps on the ground, but Luli did not touch them. He could sense them easily with the trace of Dao. He could fly around them without any pressure. What? Hua Tiandao and the others finally realized something. It was Dong Yang who noticed it first. He stopped to rest for a while. Out of instinct, he threw a look at Luli. Luli was gone. **T. Dong Yang used psychic power to check. Luli was coming up like a ghost. Dong Yang could not help but swear. Hua Tiandao and the others were attracted. They were dumbfounded when they used psychic power to check. They had worked so hard to climb up, but Luli flew up so easily. Are you King playing house here? Weren't they playing by the same rules? Was Luli the illegitimate son of the master of the Holy Lady sect? Could he avoid the rules? If Luli can fly all the way up, I will quit the seminar with Hua Yang. Hua Tiandao snorted. They had worked so hard and worked so hard. Yet Luli had come up so easily. Anyone in his position would not be happy about this. Right? Dong Yang yelled as well. This is not fair. Phone Wooding is cheating. If he can reach the 10,000 step directly, we will all quit and let Phone Wooding play alone. The people outside could hear their conversation. The elders of the Saintist sect all had an unnatural expression. If all four of them quit, the Tao discussion with Huayang would really become a joke. Chapter 2795. Phone Wooding cracked the rune himself. The rule is that you can do whatever you want as long as you can get to the top 10,000 stairs. There is no cheating. If you can crack the rune, you can get to the top 10,000 stairs. As a big sect, the Holy Lady sect will be fair and just for holding this Huayang seminar. Please do not doubt the credibility of the Holy Lady sect. The Shadow Queen's words were heard not only outside, but also by Dong Ying and Hua Tiandao's ears on the Mount of Empress. The four of them were still angry and clamoring. But after hearing the Shadow Queen's words, they were like deflated balloons. They didn't know what to say. The Patriarch of the Holy Lady sect had said before the competition that as long as the opponent was not attacked, there were no other rules. If you could fly up to the top 10,000 stairs, then that was your ability. The meaning of the Shadow Queen's words was clear: fly up if you can, and shut up if you can't. If it were anyone else, they would have been angry. But the Shadow Queen's status was there, and so many people were watching. If they continued to clamor, they would be sore losers. They would be humiliated, and their sects and families would be implicated. Luli was still flying up. He was almost at the 4,000 stairs. The four of them wanted to cry, but no tears came out. They were so upset. The four of them stopped. If Luli could keep flying up like this, there would be no point for them to climb. The 4,500 stairs, the 5,000 stairs. Luli finally stopped after he reached the 5,000 stairs. He was suppressed by the strong gravity and could no longer fly freely. Moreover, because he had been flying before, his body trembled from the gravity, and he almost knelt on the stone steps. The four of them felt a bit better. It seemed that the first 5,000 stairs would be easy for Luli, but the later ones would be just as difficult. If that was the case, then they wouldn't feel so much pressure anymore. They were so far ahead that they still had an advantage. Seeing this, the people outside found it easier to accept. Otherwise, if Luli just flew up, it would be too boring. A group of people would wonder if the Empress Peak lived up to its reputation. At first, Xiang Linglong and Lu Ling were overjoyed, but their hearts were weighed down by what they saw. Lu Ling was calmer than Xiang Linglong. The disappointment on her face was obvious. Lu Ling believed that if Luli could reach level 5,000 so easily, then he must have a way to reach level 10,000 quickly. Even if he couldn't fly, he would be faster than a group of people. Luli stopped and asked, "Which way should I go?" "Over here. The Empress will release all kinds of attacks. If it's the same as them, I definitely won't be able to catch up to them." "Don't worry, Master," Blood Fairy replied. "Although I can't completely decipher the divine inscriptions, I can tell you how to get there. That way, you can avoid triggering the divine inscriptions. As long as you don't trigger as many divine inscriptions as possible, it will be much easier to ascend the mountain." "All right." Luli released Dragon Wrestle and Heaven Armor, and then began to climb. He was not fast. After all, the gravity here was so strong that he could not go faster, even if he wanted to. At the same time, he released his source power, ready to deal with Empress Peak's attack at any time. After walking up 11 steps, Blood Fairy said, "Master, all 6 steps will trigger the divine inscriptions. Can you try and jump to the top?" "Jump to the top?" Luli touched his nose in embarrassment. It was hard enough to walk, and he had to jump? He had to jump to the top? This level of difficulty was abnormally high. "Let's try." Luli channeled some of his origin energy into his legs. Then, with a sudden push of his legs, his body rose from the ground and flew above rank 6. He stood steadily on the stairs. He breathed in relief when he didn't trigger the divine inscriptions of Empress Peak. "What? I can jump to the top? I remember there are divine inscriptions here." Just now, Hua Tiandao and the others triggered them. Did Phone Wooding know there are divine inscriptions here, so he jumped to the top? He really can see through the divine inscriptions. He must be the first to jump to the top of Empress Peak. Many people were paying attention to Lu Li. It was quite a sight. Just now, Hua Tiandao and the others triggered the divine inscriptions here, but Lu Li jumped to the top. Shadow Queen nodded and said to a great emperor next to her, "This guy really did crack the divine inscriptions. He has never used such a novel method to climb the Empress Peak." Empress Peak is a holy weapon. We cannot even crack the divine inscriptions on it. How'd he do it? A great emperor asked with confusion. The other great emperor of the Holy Lady sect looked over as well. Shadow Queen said with a smile, "This guy is a goblin. I think he is very good at studying divine inscriptions. That goblin has gone into Empress Peak." What? The group of great Emperor Realm warriors was shocked. One of them stood up and said, "How can this be? Empress Peak is the most precious treasure of our sect. What if the divine inscriptions inside are destroyed?" Shadow Queen, teleport phone Wooding out at once. That's right. This isn't a joke. Nothing must happen to Empress Peak. Shadow Queen, teleport phone Wooding out and stop the competition. Empress Peak was too important to the Holy Lady sect. They would rather not have the Hua Yang seminar. Nothing could go wrong with Empress Peak. If something went wrong with Empress Peak, the Holy Lady sect would lose a foundation. The overall strength of the Holy Lady sect would decline. Don't panic. Shadow Queen smiled and said, "Don't make a fuss. Have you forgotten that Empress Peak has an artifact spirit? That artifact spirit was sealed by our sacred ancestor himself. It is as strong as a great emperor." Phone Wooding's goblin has no attacking power. If it dares to do anything, the artifact spirit will destroy its soul immediately. I see. The great Emperor Realm warriors were relieved after hearing Shadow Queen's words. They thought to themselves that they were too nervous. They were too worried. If Empress Peak could be destroyed so easily, this treasure would have been destroyed a long time ago. This treasure had strong defense from the inside out. There seemed to be an artifact spirit that could be compared to a great emperor. It was extremely powerful. Even Lu Li would be suppressed if he went into it, let alone a goblin. Look, he is jumping again. This guy has climbed more than 100 steps. He didn't even trigger a single divine inscription attack. If this Empress Peak is not the most precious treasure of the Holy Lady sect, I suspect that he has refined the Empress Peak. Oh no, Wen Xiang and the others will be surpassed by him. Right? He is going up too fast. I think he can climb up to thousands of steps in 1 or 2 days. The spectators were in an uproar, which attracted the attention of Shadow Queen and the others. They looked over and forced a smile. Lu Li was like a kangaroo, hopping up and down the mountain with ease. He didn't trigger a single divine inscription attack. For others, the Empress Peak was like a mountain of knives and a sea of fire. For Lu Li, it was more like his backyard. Strange old phone, did you train your little monster to provoke me on purpose? Chapter 2796. 8,000. It took Lu Li more than half a day to get to 8,000. During this time, he only triggered 6 divine patterns, and they were all dissolved by Lu Li's source energy. It had taken them so many days to get to 8,000. Lu Li had caught up with them in half a day. As a matter of fact, Lu Li's gravity was no less than theirs. It was just that his physical body was stronger, and he didn't trigger many divine patterns. The others would trigger divine patterns every 2 or 3 steps, and they were often injured. They had to stop to rest and tend to their wounds. Lu Li kept on going up. It was easy for him to catch up when Xiang and Hua Tiandao had already climbed over 9,000 steps. When Xiang had reached 9,200 steps, while Hua Tiandao had just reached 9,000. Dong Ying was third at 8,800 steps, and Tu Ying was last at 8,500 steps. Tu Ying didn't even want to climb anymore. He was fifth, and Lu Li would catch up soon. What was the point? He would have to suffer. However, with 100,000 people and so many powerful warriors watching, Tu Ying couldn't just admit defeat. He had to make up his mind and keep climbing. Lu Li stopped at 8,000 steps. He sat down with his legs crossed, took out some water, food, and wine, and enjoyed by himself. This time, He didn't feel too much pressure. As long as nothing went wrong, he would win first place for sure. Brother Dong Yang, do something behind us. If I do, it will be hard for you to come up. Hua Tiandao said to Dong Yang. Dong Yang's smoke was good and could corrode divine energy. Luli would not have divine energy. How could he climb without it? That is not good. Young Master Tu Ying is still behind us. Dong Yang said after a moment of hesitation. Hua Tiandao sneered. Tu Ying has given up. Foam Wooding will catch up soon. What does it matter? If you don't, I will do it. No, Dong Yang said at once. If Hua Tiandao were to do something, he would be the one affected unless Lu Li could surpass him. As he continued to climb up, he scattered smoke and dust. The smoke and dust fell to the ground silently, covering the entire stone staircase. *T. Tu Ying detected Dong Ying's small movements, and his face immediately became angry. He was still behind, but Dong Ying was also messing with him. Forget it. Tu Ying sighed helplessly. He couldn't make it to the top 3 anyway. He could only be at the bottom. Lu Li would surpass him soon, so he would let Lu Li solve the problem. Even though Lu Li was eating and drinking leisurely, he had been paying attention to the others. He raised his eyebrows, but didn't take them seriously. He knew about Dong Yang's method. The colorless and formless smoke, if touched by it, would enter the body through the pores and quickly corrode the divine power. However, did he have divine power? Currently, there was no god power in his meridians, nor in his god elixir. There was only god power in his acupoints. Most importantly, he wasn't using divine power right now and was relying entirely on his physical body to move forward. His attacks were also relying on origin power, so this smoke was practically useless against him. He rested for more than an hour before continuing to rush upwards. The gravity might be very strong for others, but it was fine for him. As long as he could withstand Empress Peak's attack, everything else was fine. Master, there are divine patterns in front of you. You have to jump 10 levels. Master, there's another divine inscription in front of you. It's best for you to walk along the side wall so that it won't be triggered. But if you take the side walls, the gravity will be even stronger. You have to be fast. Master, be careful. Thunderbolts are coming. Master, there's underground fire up ahead. Step back at once, and then go up again. There's a time gap when the underground fire comes out. You can go there quickly. Blood Fairy kept sending messages. Lu Li followed her instructions and moved forward quickly. 6 hours later, he surpassed Tu Ying. When he approached Tu Ying, he was on guard in case Tu Ying tried to sneak up on him. If he would be blasted down, it would be a waste of time for him to come back up. Fortunately, Tu Ying was smart enough not to do something that would hurt both sides. When Lu Li surpassed him, Tu Ying cupped his fists and said, "Young Master Feng, I am impressed. You must be walking on the Empress Peak like walking on flat ground." Tu Ying didn't sound sarcastic. Lu Li cupped his fists and said, "I am ashamed. I have only found some tricks. Young Master Tu, do you want to go up with me? I will take you with me." Ah, Tu Ying was pleasantly surprised. Then, he shook his head and said with a forced smile, "Never mind. Young Master Feng, you go first. I will take my time." One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Tu Ying understood that Lu Li was sincere in wanting to take him with him. He wanted Tu Ying to win the second place and eliminate Dong Yang and Hua Tiandao. For Lu Li, both Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang were formidable opponents, but Tu Ying was not. His abilities were much weaker than the other two. It would be easier for Lu Li to let Tu Ying enter the top 3. However, if he were to go up like this, he would be hated by Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang because the two would be eliminated directly. Why would he offend them when he could not win the first place? His abilities and the forces behind him were no match for Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang. The higher-ups of the Holy Maiden sect all knew this. It didn't matter if he could make it to the top 3 or not. Therefore, he would not offend Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang just for an empty title. Hua Tiandao was a violent person and would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Offending him would lead to trouble. Then take your time. Lu Li smiled lightly. He didn't try to persuade Tu Ying any further. He walked on. Dong Yang saw that Lu Li was catching up. He scattered more smoke and dust. Since the powerful warriors of the Holy Maiden sect didn't stop him, Lu Li must have noticed. Dong Yang was almost unscrupulous. "Brother Dong Yang," Lu Li shouted, "stop it. There are 100,000 people watching. Are you not afraid of being disgraced? Your poison has no effect on me." Dong Yang was going to scatter more smoke and dust. However, his hands trembled and he stopped. He was embarrassed. It was true that there were 100,000 people watching. It was shameful for him to do this. The thing was, if he didn't do this, Lu Li would catch up with him soon. By then, he would be the fourth place and eliminated directly. Once he was eliminated, he would not be able to get Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong. He had been hoping to achieve his long-cherished wish for so many years. No, a glint of coldness rose in Dong Yang's eyes. He didn't plan to stay in the endless ruins for the rest of his life anyway. Face and reputation were nothing to him. What was the use of reputation? In this world, power was everything. Therefore, Dong Yang kept moving up and scattered more smoke and dust on ground. At the same time, he made up his mind that if Lu Li was going to surpass him, he would make a move. That was right. He was ready to make a move. If Lu Li surpassed him, he would be the fourth place and he would be eliminated. What else did he have to worry about if he was going to be eliminated? If he made a move, it would be against the rules. At worst, he would be eliminated directly. Would the Holy Maiden sect dare to kill him? There was an important reason why Dong Yang wanted to make a move. Yang Gang said that Feng Wooding was Lu Li. Ever since Yang Gang said so, Dong Yang felt Feng Wooding was more and more like Lu Li. Even though Lu Li changed his voice and actions on purpose, Dong Yang still felt it was the same. If it was Lu Li, then Lu Li's purpose of coming here in disguise was clear. He was here to take Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong away. What he couldn't have, he wouldn't let Lu Li have it. Ha. Chapter 2797. Another half a day passed. When Dong Yang was on the 9,000th step, Lu Li arrived at where Dong Yang was standing. Dust had been scattered on the stone steps in front of them, but it was not visible on the surface. Without any hesitation, Lu Li stepped on the stairs. The dust on the ground swirled up and enveloped Lu Li. The dust entered his body through his pores. Lu Li stopped. Many psychic powers were locked on him, trying to see if the dust could do anything to him. Lu Li closed his eyes and tried to sense carefully. After a while, he grinned and continued to stride up. Some divine energy in his energy channels had been corroded, but the divine energy in his acupoints was not affected. However, the divine power in his meridians was not affected at all. He himself did not rely on divine power to move forward, so the dust did not affect him at all. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong's eyes glowed when they saw that Lu Li was striding on. Dong Yang, on the other hand, was frustrated. This man was a freak. His dust had never failed him. Many of his opponents should have been defeated by him when their divine energy was exhausted. Lu Li, on the other hand, seemed to be unaffected. There is no other way. A glint of coldness rose in Dong Yang's eyes. After he reached the 9,000th step, he felt the pressure was doubled. Judging from when Xiang and the others, the attacks here were horrifying. Given his abilities, Lu Li would surpass him easily. Dong Yang was destined to be eliminated. Since he was going to be eliminated, Dong Yang decided to throw caution to the wind. He pretended to be going up while he was secretly preparing to sneak up on Lu Li and knock him off. Wen Xiang and Hua Tiandao felt the pressure, especially when Xiang was so far ahead. At this moment, he had already ascended the 9,384 stone stair and was only slightly more than 600 steps away from the 10,000 stone stair. Victory was in sight. The difference between the first to reach the 10,000th step and the second and third was huge. Boy! When Xiang gave a low shout and swallowed a pill. Then, he sped up and climbed upwards. Hua Tiandao, on the other hand, was getting impatient. He sent a message to Dong Yang. "Brother Dong Yang, I think you are destined to be eliminated. If so, why don't you sneak up on Feng Wooding and knock him off to vent your anger? If you can do that, I, Hua Tiandao, will be in your debt." Dong Ying's heart skipped a beat. Just as he was about to sleep, someone actually sent him a pillow. He had wanted to do this, but he hadn't expected Hua Tiandao to ask him for help. Since that was the case, he naturally had to extort them. Brother Hua, I don't think that's a good idea, right? If I make a move, I'll be eliminated immediately. Moreover, it will affect my reputation. When the time comes, the female sage sect will also find trouble with me. You can't say that. Hua Tiandao's face lit up when he saw that Dong Yang seemed to be interested. If he could knock Lu Li off the stage and let Tu Ying take third place, he would have a much higher chance of taking first place. Up until now, he had not found a way to crack the origin energy. It boded ill rather than well for him against Lu Li. Therefore, he hurriedly transmitted his voice. Feng Wooding will definitely surpass you. Even if you're in fourth place, you will still be eliminated. As for your reputation, if you are eliminated, your reputation will also be affected. If you make a move, you'll end up with a reputation of being someone who dares to love and hate. You don't need to care about the female, saintly sect. I will help you with everything. If the female saintly sect doesn't give you any rewards, I will bear all of them. Afterward, I will compensate Brother Dong Yi. Compensate? Dong Yang went straight to the point. Brother Hua, how are you going to compensate me? I have no lack of godstones or treasures. I just need some opportunities to improve. I heard that the Hua family has 2 primitive mysterious realms that are impressive. No problem, Hua Tiandao said decisively. Brother Dong Yi, as long as you make a move, you can come to the Mount Hua Di, and I will let you cultivate in the 2 primitive mysterious realms for 10 years. What do you say? A gentleman's word. A promise cannot be taken back. The 2 reached an agreement at once. Hua Tiandao was hot-tempered and vengeful, but he was a real villain. He was a man of his words, which was well known in the endless ruins of gods. Therefore, Dong Yang was relieved. He didn't expect that there would be a pleasant surprise. Dong Yang and Hua Tiandao discussed for a while more. Just like before, they didn't show any strange expressions. They were still desperately climbing up. Lu Li and Dong Yang were dozens of steps away. Lu Li could already see Dong Yang. After a while, Lu Li stopped to take a rest. Dong Yang was not sure that he was Lu Li, but Lu Li knew Dong Yang well. He was a narrow-minded man. Lu Li had to be on guard against Dong Yang's desperate actions. Therefore, Lu Li planned to surpass Dong Yang after he was fully recovered. After resting for 2 hours, Lu Li continued to climb. In 4 hours, he had caught up with Dong Yang. Dong Yang was 4 or 5 steps below him. One quick leap, and he could catch up with him. At the moment, Lu Li was nervous as well. He had been using the trace of Dao to check on Dong Yang. Dong Yang looked back at Lu Li and continued to climb up. Right at that moment, he heard a laugh coming from above. It was Hua Tiandao's voice. Ha, ha, ha. Feng Wooding, I didn't know that you could catch up, but you will never be able to surpass me. Hua Tiandao's voice was loud, like thunder. Anyone else would have used psychic power to check on Hua Tiandao. But Lu Li reacted quickly. He didn't listen to what Hua Tiandao said. He stared at Dong Yang with killing intent in his eyes. Feng Wooding, come down with me. Ha ha ha. Dong Yang laughed. Then, he dashed forward like a mad dragon. He generated a huge palm print and smashed at Lu Li. At the same time, an iron-armored Kuei ox appeared next to him. It was difficult for the Kuei ox to go up, but it was easy for it to go down. The Kuei ox charged at Lu Li from the side. This guy's playing dirty. Lu Li's pupils contracted. He was confident that he could shatter Dong Yang's palm print. But once the iron-armored Kuei ox bumped into him, he would be smashed away by the horrifying force. It wouldn't be a big deal if Lu Li was only knocked back a few hundred steps. What he was afraid of was that he would be smashed off the stairs. By then, he would be smashed off the foot of the mountain by the ruins of the Peak of Empress. In a split second, Lu Li made up his mind. He made up his mind, mobilized his source energy, and released a ray of sword light toward the palm print. On the other side, he took out the 7-colored glazed pagoda. Flames surged out from the pagoda toward the Kuei ox. The gate of the 7-colored glazed pagoda was opened as well. A surge of horrifying suction force acted on the Kuei ox. What? It was a mess out there. How dare Dong Yang make a move? This was a clear violation of the rules and a provocation to the Holy Lady sect. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong's expressions changed. Queen of Shadow and the other great emperors of the Holy Lady sect became gloomy as well. Boom! Lu Li's ray of sword light shattered the palm print easily. The ray of sword light went on and landed on Dong Yang. Dong Yang was smashed away. His armor was shattered, and he was covered in blood. On the other side, the flames enveloped the Kuei ox. The Kuei ox was strong in defense, so it was not burned to death, but it was wounded. The suction force from a 7-colored glazed pagoda didn't suck the Kuei ox in either, but it did slow it down. Buzzing at that moment, the peak of Empress glowed. Then the Kuei ox and Dong Yang both disappeared from the stairs. Queen of Shadow had come back to her senses. She controlled the runes of the Peak of Empress to teleport Dong Yang and the Kuei ox out. Ah ha ha! Dong Yang saw a white glare, and he appeared on the plaza. His clothes were ragged and covered in blood, but he didn't care. Instead, he began to laugh like he was having a seizure. He made eye contact with Gang Yang on the grandstand. Both of them were smiling coldly. The 7-colored glazed pagoda. Dong Yang had successfully forced Lu Li to use his trump card. They were sure that Feng Wooding was Lu Li. Chapter 2798. The 7-colored glazed pagoda was famous in the third heaven because it was the Emperor of Reincarnation's famous emperor weapon. The appearance of the artifact was very strange. It could be recognized at first glance. Yang Gang and Dong Ying both knew that the 7-colored glazed pagoda was in Lu Li's hands. Therefore, by taking out the pagoda, Lu Li had revealed his identity. Lu Li had no other choice. If he didn't take out the pagoda, how could he fight against the one-legged bull? If he was knocked off the Peak of Empress, then by the time he climbed back up, Wen Xiang and Hua Tiandao would have climbed up the stairs. If Tu Ying went up again, then he would be eliminated. If that was the case, then what did it matter if his identity was exposed or not? What was more, he only took out the 7-colored glazed pagoda. He didn't have any other evidence. He could insist that this was not the 7-colored glazed pagoda and that it was just a similar artifact. He had to play it by ear. Lu Li was nervous. Dong Yang had been teleported out. If he reported him to the Shadow Queen, then he might be teleported out as well. Therefore, he swallowed 2 pills and continued forward while waiting anxiously. He waited for a while, but he was not teleported out? Lu Li was a bit surprised. Did Dong Yang not report him? Dong Yang really didn't report him. He was standing outside obediently. He didn't even have time to heal his wounds. He was still bleeding. The Shadow Queen and a group of Emperor Realm warriors were looking at him coldly. Many patriarchs of the Holy Lady sect were glaring at him. Fighting in the Peak of Empress was against the rules set by the Holy Lady sect. It was a provocation to the Holy Lady sect. How could the Holy Lady sect show any respect? Dong Yang, a patriarch, scolded. Do you know what you have done? I am wrong. Dong Yang admitted his mistake honestly. He cupped his fists and said, Shadow Queen, Lords, I was so angry that I acted rashly. I have broken the rules. I have nothing to say if you want to punish me or punish me. Seeing that Dong Yang was so sensible and that it didn't affect Lu Li too much, the group of powerful warriors felt a bit better. The Shadow Queen waved her hand and said, Go now. You are not qualified for the rest of the matches. If you dare to mess around again, don't blame me for not showing respect to your master. Yes, yes, yes. Dong Yang hurriedly retreated in fear and trepidation. He did not dare to return to the open-air pavilion. Instead, he went to the corner of the grandstand to sit aside and heal his injuries. Many people in the stands looked at him with disdain. People like him were disgusted by people like him because he was not as skilled as others. Of course, there were also people who could understand Dong Yang. They thought that he couldn't stand Lu Li's opportunism, so he made a move in anger and wanted to injure Lu Li along with him. Some people admired his courage. Brother Ying, Yang Gang, on the other hand, was losing patience. He said, Why don't you expose Lu Li? He is pretending to be someone else. As long as you expose him, The female holy sect will definitely disqualify him and even hold him accountable. What's the rush? The corner of Dong Yang's mouth twitched. He looked ferocious. He said, "Let's wait until Lu Li wins the number one. Ha ha. First place?" Yang Gong's eyes flashed, and he suddenly understood. You mean, let him climb higher, give him hope, and then let him fall into despair? That's right. Dong Yang sneered and said, "The higher he climbs, the harder he falls. I will stay here and wait for Lu Li to win the number one. Then I will expose his identity in public and let him fall into despair." Ha ha ha. Ha ha. Yang Gang also laughed. He could imagine such a scene, and it would be very interesting when the time came. Lu Li was relieved after a while. Since Dong Yang didn't expose his identity, then he must be fine for now. Maybe Dong Yang would be taken down and expelled from the Mount of Huayang as soon as he got out. With this in mind, Lu Li sped up and rushed up with Gale Charge and Electric Shock. When Xiang and Hua Tiandao were getting anxious as well, the two of them started to rush up desperately. Wen Xiang wanted to keep the number one. Hua Tiandao, on the other hand, was not convinced. He didn't want to be surpassed by Lu Li. The thing was, the two of them would be attacked by the female Empress Peak every few steps they took. The attacks were much fiercer than before. Every step they took was dangerous. How could they be fast? Lu Li, on the other hand, was hopping up and down. Sometimes he would run along the walls. He rarely triggered any divine patterns. For every 10 steps they went up, Lu Li would go up dozens. They couldn't be compared. 2 hours later, Lu Li made it to the top of 9,000 stairs. 6 hours later, Lu Li was close to Hua Tiandao. He was only dozens of steps away. Hua Tiandao even had an idea at this moment. He wanted to knock Lu Li down. But on the thought of Dong Yang, he gave up. Even if he made a move, he might not be able to knock Lu Li down. Shadow Queen and the others must be paying attention to him. Maybe he would be teleported out as soon as he made a move. Also, even if Lu Li surpassed him, he would still be the number 3. There was still hope for him to win the championship. But if he made a move, he would be eliminated. Lu Li had been on guard. He didn't think Hua Tiandao would be that stupid. Therefore, he went after Hua Tiandao, even though he was on guard. After an hour, Lu Li surpassed Hua Tiandao easily. Hua Tiandao stopped at this moment, looked at Lu Li coldly, and said, "Feng Wooding, just you wait. I will fight with you, and I will defeat you." Is that so? Lu Li smiled. He didn't waste any more words. He just smiled and continued on his way up. Hua Tiandao, on the other hand, was not in a hurry. He sat on the ground with his legs crossed and rested. Whether Lu Li or Wen Xiang was the number 1, Hua Tiandao had to fight against the number 2 and defeat the number 1 in order to fight for the championship. Therefore, he must conserve his strength and build up his energy. He had to heal his wounds and wait for the last 2 fights. It didn't matter if it was earlier or later. When Xiang was getting nervous, there was a big difference between being the first and the second. The second had to fight against the third in order to fight for the championship with the number 1. The number 1 only had to fight once, and the number 2 had to fight twice. Of course, there was a big difference. Hua Tiandao had been at the number 1 for a long time. Now, he was at the 9,600 step with only 300 steps to go. How could he be willing to fail at the last moment? However, down below, Lu Li kept coming up like a fierce leopard. He was unstoppable. The distance between Hua Tiandao and Wen Xiang was narrowing. Wen Xiang had withstood several attacks with the help of his armor, but he could only watch as Lu Li caught up. The 9,700th step. The 9,800th step. There were only 200 steps to go. Usually, Hua Tiandao could make it to the top in an instant. But now, he didn't dare to because he could be smashed off if he was not careful. Alas, he turned around and saw Lu Li at the bottom of the stairs. Hua Tiandao sighed. Hua Tiandao had tried his best, but failed on the verge of success. Hua Tiandao kept on climbing. When he reached the 9,850th step, Lu Li finally caught up with him. Hua Tiandao didn't lose his composure. He cupped his fists and said, "Brother Feng, congratulations." "Brother Wen." Lu Li saluted back and said, "Wu Ding is sorry that we couldn't fight before. I hope you could defeat Hua Tiandao, so we can have one last fight. Come on, brotherwin. I have faith in you. Lu Li left. When Xiang stared at Lu Li's back, he remembered the first time he fought against Lu Li. Lu Li gave up? Lu Li said he wanted Wen Xiang to fight. Chapter 2799. Unsurprisingly, Lu Li was the first to reach the rank of 10,000. He was teleported out as well. When he came out, Xiang Linglong and Lu Ling almost cried tears of joy. What? Lu Li suddenly noticed something. He was teleported out when he reached the rank of 10,000. Blood Fairy was still in the Mount of Empress. Blood Fairy was not an average pet. She was very important to Lu Li. She was a master of divine runes. Feng Wooding, congratulations. Patriarch of the Holy Lady sect said. Lu Li had to put it aside for now and talk to Shadow Queen later. The Mount of Empress was a world of its own. Lu Li had lost his spiritual connection with Blood Fairy. All eyes were on him. Lu Li looked around. He noticed that Dong Yang was sitting on the grandstand to tend to his wounds. Lu Li thought to himself that Dong Yang was not sent away. Did he not see through Lu Li's identity? Or did he not report him? Anyhow, at least for now, nothing was out of the ordinary. Lu Li pretended to look at the 35 beauties. He paused on Xiang Linglong and Lu Ling for the time for one breath and made eye contact with the two. The moment he made eye contact with Lu Ling, his heart trembled. He saw familiar emotions in Lu Ling's eyes. He did not notice it that night, but now he saw it clearly. Sister, the familiar Lu Ling was back. His sister was back. Lu Ling had broken through the memory seal. From Lu Li's eyes, he saw the affection, pride, and excitement that he was familiar with. At this moment, Lu Li was filled with heroic spirit. He would raise his saber if anyone dared to stop him from taking Lu Ling away. He was not afraid even of the chief of the Holy Lady sect. He did not dare to look into Lu Ling's eyes for too long. He forced himself to look away and looked into Xiang Linglong's eyes. Lu Li's heart trembled again. In Xiang Linglong's eyes, he saw the passion, the unreserved flame of love. How could a girl as cold as an iceberg show such strong emotions? The softest part of his heart had been touched. Lu Li made up his mind that he would take them away even at the cost of his own life. He would not let them suffer any more. He did not dare to look at them any longer. He went back to the tower alone. The top 10 young masters were still there, congratulating him. Lu Li returned the salute and sat down with his legs crossed to recover his energy and strength, waiting for the final fight. There were no surprises after that. Wen Xiang took second place, and Hua Tian Dao took third place. After Hua Tian Dao climbed up the 10,000 stone steps, Tu Ying was also teleported out. The Emperor's peak rapidly shrunk and flew back into Shadow Emperor's hand. This, Lu Li opened his eyes. Blood Fairy was still in the Mount Empress. When he saw that the Emperor's peak had shrunk, he quickly tried to summon Blood Fairy through their mental connection. He did not expect that there would be a faint mental connection. Master, I'll come out later. However, Blood Fairy did not want to come out. Instead, she sent a voice transmission. The divine patterns on this Empress peak are very mysterious. I want to study them for a while. Then, I will sneak out to look for you. Lu Li wanted to ask Blood Fairy to come out immediately. However, the match was over. If Blood Fairy came out in public, it would be seen as cheating. Therefore, Lu Li refrained from doing so. Shadow Empress looked at the Mount Empress and smiled. She did not put away. Instead, she put on the table next to her. The Patriarch of the Holy Lady sect shouted, "Take a break for 2 hours. Wen Xiang and Hua Tian Dao will fight. The winner will fight Feng Wooding in half a day to compete for the first place." Half a day, many people curled their lips. The rules were unfair. Lu Li had the upper hand. The fight would be intense. Hua Tian Dao and Wen Xiang were well matched. Last time, both of them were wounded. This time, it would be the same. Lu Li had the upper hand. Lu Li was delighted. Xiang Linglong was overjoyed. The first place seemed to be in the bag. This time, there was an unspoken rule in the Hua Yang seminar. The winner could choose 3 beauties to marry. Though it was not an explicit rule, the Holy Lady sect had spread the word. Everyone knew. Naturally, the Holy Lady sect would not go back on their word. This time, Hua Tiandao and Hua Tiandao had lost all hope and were ready to choose Dong Ying. Unexpectedly, Lu Li surprised them again. Once again, he saved them from despair. Ever since she was a little girl, she had longed to marry a hero who could hold up the sky for her. Finally, the hero had come. Soon, 2 hours passed. Wen Xiang and Hua Tiandao's wounds were not fully recovered yet. They had no choice but to go back to the arena. Lu Li didn't watch. He continued to cultivate source energy and build up his strength. Both Hua Tiandao and Wen Xiang were formidable opponents. Lu Li must go all out in this last fight. It didn't matter to him who won or lost. It would be better if it was Hua Tiandao. After all, Hua Tiandao didn't have a sovereign weapon or armor. The fight was intense. Both of them tried their best. At this stage, both of them wanted to go further. The second place would make them more famous. With 100,000 people and so many powerful warriors watching, both of them wanted to perform well. The fight lasted for more than 2 hours. Both of them were wounded. Wen Xiang's sovereign weapon could only protect his body, not his limbs and head. One of his legs was cut off. Hua Tiandao's armor was broken. His back was covered in blood, but the two were still fighting hard. Boom! In the end, Wen Xiang was slightly weaker. He was attacked by Hua Tiandao. His helmet cracked, and his head was cracked. If the fight went on, his life might be in danger. He cupped his fists side and said, "Okay, Brother Hua, I admit defeat. Thank you." Hua Tiandao wiped the blood from his mouth, cupped his fists, and said, "I was lucky to win against you today. I admire you very much. Either way, I will make friends with you." Ha ha ha. Wen Xiang laughed. He took 2 healing pellets and said, "Brother Hua, rest well. I look forward to your fight to the top." Top. Hua Tiandao forced a smile. He was so badly injured that he almost couldn't stand it anymore. How much could he recover in half a day? Lu Li had source energy. Hua Tiandao was no match for him. The fight next boded ill. The two were teleported out. Hua Tiandao flew back to the outdoor pavilion at once to heal his wounds. The patriarch of the Holy Maiden sect announced a half-day break. The final fight would begin in half a day. Nobody was looking forward to the final fight because the gap between the two was too wide. Hua Tiandao had already lost to Lu Li. Now that he was badly injured, how could he fight? Time moved on. A patriarch of the Hua family went over to ask Hua Tiandao some questions out of concern. Nothing else happened. Soon, half a day passed. Hua Tiandao opened his eyes on time. He put on his armor again. His face was still pale. He looked like a patient who had just recovered from a serious illness. He walked out slowly. Lu Li opened his eyes and walked out as well. Chapter 2800. Buzzing, the two of them were teleported into the arena. It was the same arena as before. They had fought enough. As soon as they came in, Lu Li released Dragon Wrestling and Heaven Armor at once. He mobilized his origin energy as well, ready to attack at any time. Ha ha! Hua Tiandao laughed as he came in. He said, "Brother Feng, it is time for us to fight again. I know I am no match for you. Let's see if you can do me a favor and let me hold on a bit longer." Lu Li remained calm. He would not take anything Hua Tiandao said seriously. He kept telling himself that he must try his best. He must defeat Hua Tiandao with absolute power and not give him any chance. Seeing that Hua Tiandao didn't attack, Lu Li said, "I think if you want to save face, you'd better admit defeat. You are so badly injured. Nobody will say anything if you admit defeat." Ha ha ha. Hua Tiandao laughed and said, "It is not my style to admit defeat before the fight even starts. Even if I'm going to lose, I will lose with a bang. Come on, Brother Feng, make your move. Watch out." Lu Li did not hold back. He took out his saber and released his origin energy. A ray of white sword light whooshed on. As soon as the source energy was released, a horrifying pressure spread out. Space was shaking. Good timing. Hua Tiandao shouted and hacked at Lu Li with his saber. 3 streaks of dark air swept across. At the same time, he turned into a ray of light and approached Lu Li from the lower left side. How dare you come closer? Lu Li raised his eyebrows. Hua Tiandao was getting bolder. After all, it was more difficult to defend against his attacks when he was closer. One careless move, and he could be injured or even killed. The patriarchs of the Holy Lady sect were getting nervous. Lu Li's attacks were brutal. One careless move, and Hua Tiandao could be killed. By then, things would get out of hand. That being said, Shadow Queen and so many emperors were here. They were all paying attention to the fight inside. Once something went wrong, the emperors would step in to stop it. Since the enemy had come to him, Lu Li did not show any mercy. He hacked at Hua Tiandao. 3 streaks of sword energy whooshed out, blocking off 3 directions for Hua Tiandao. If Hua Tiandao wanted to continue forward, he would have to scatter a strand of blade chi. However, Hua Tiandao did not have any treasures on him. Could his armor withstand his origin energy? Chi! Hua Tiandao released 3 streaks of black sword energy toward the white sword light in the middle of Lu Li. At the same time, Hua Tiandao moved forward with the black sword energy and was getting closer. This is strange. Lu Li thought about it, and the saber in his hand glowed again. Even if Hua Tiandao could survive this strike, could he survive the next one? Boom! Lu Li's white blade light collided with the 3 black blade chis. The 3 black blade chis were all annihilated, but the origin energy was almost exhausted, leaving only a weak blade light that slashed toward Hua Tiandao. Buzz! A mirror appeared in Hua Tiandao's hand. When the white blade beam struck the mirror, it actually bounced back. It did not cause any damage to Hua Tiandao, nor did it cause any cracks to appear on the mirror. Divine Mirror of Darkness, Monarch Weapon. This treasure belongs to Hua Qingfeng, the 3rd patriarch of the Hua family. How come it is in Hua Tiandao's hands? Why didn't Hua Tiandao use this monarch weapon before? He didn't even use it when he was fighting Wen Xiang. Did someone from the Hua family give it to Hua Tiandao secretly? I think a patriarch of the Hua family has entered the pavilion. This is going to be interesting. The Divine Mirror of Darkness can reflect attacks. Feng Wuding may not be able to win. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong's hearts skipped a beat. Many people who thought Lu Li was going to win were having second thoughts. The mirror was famous. It was Hua Qingfeng's famous relic weapon, which he obtained from an ancient holy land. The mirror had strange abilities. Hua Qingfeng did not come to the Holy Maiden sect. How come the Divine Mirror of Darkness was in Hua Tiandao's hands? The mirror. Lu Li was surprised as well. The mirror had a strong energy of a monarch weapon. Hua Tiandao had been hiding a monarch weapon and took it out at the last moment. Or, the monarch weapon had been in the hands of a powerful warrior of the Hua family that came with Hua Tiandao, and he only gave it to Hua Tiandao at the last moment. Swish! Hua Tiandao stabbed forward with his saber. A gust of black wind whooshed by. It was like a shadow of a spear, long, thin, and fast. Lu Li was taken aback. It was too late for him to dodge now. His eyes turned, and source energy appeared in one hand. His fist immediately glowed with a white light. He raised his fist and smashed it toward the black wind. Boom! The gust of black wind was shattered, but there was a horrifying explosion. Lu Li was smashed away. His armor was not of a high level, and there were cracks on it. Swish, swish, Hua Tiandao kept on stabbing with his saber. He had finally gained the upper hand. How could he let go of such an opportunity? He waved his saber constantly. He would either hack at Lu Li with black sword energy or stab at the gust of black wind. Boom, boom, boom. The attacks kept coming. Lu Li had no way to dodge. He had to deal with the attacks as they came and deal with them constantly. There were continuous explosions around him. Finally, his armor was cracked. He found some time to hack at Hua Tiandao, but some of his energy was consumed by the black sword energy. Then, the attack bounced back by the Mirror of Darkness. Lu Li was in a mess. *T. Lu Li looked awful. He could not go on like this. He would be injured more and more. Eventually, he would be tortured to death by Hua Tiandao. He was being suppressed by Hua Tiandao. If he could not think of a way to turn the situation around, he might lose. The thing was, Hua Tian Dao had a ninth rank enchanted soul. Lu Li's soul attacks could be ignored by Hua Tian Dao. Apart from that, there was only the dragon transformation and the seven-colored glazed pagoda. Buzzing, Lu Li released the seven-colored glazed pagoda. The dragon transformation was too recognizable. He could not use it randomly. Dong Yang knew the seven-colored glazed pagoda, but he didn't expose Lu Li. Lu Li hoped he could get lucky. Buzzing, the seven-colored glazed pagoda flew over. Unfortunately, before it could get close, Hua Tian Dao hacked at it, and the pagoda was smashed away. Hua Tian Dao seemed to have seen the dawn of victory. Even though he was seriously injured, he kept on attacking, tried to injure Lu Li. Whoosh, the seven-colored glazed pagoda was smashed away several times. Lu Li released some attacks of origin energy, but they were all neutralized by Hua Tian Dao. The mirror could bounce back Lu Li's attacks of origin energy. Every time, Lu Li's attacks failed. There is no other way. Lu Li was injured. He didn't want to go on. He could not allow any accidents to happen in this fight. Therefore, he released the dragon transformation. Hence, he released the divine dragon transformation. The dragon energy in his meridians surged out, and his blood started to boil. His body became stronger. His robe was torn apart, and dragon scales appeared on his skin. Dragon wings grew out from his back. Dragon horns grew out from his head, and his hands turned into dragon claws. His eyes became abnormally cold, causing Hua Tian Dao's body to tremble. He felt as if he was facing a powerful holy beast. Chapter 28:01. Lu Li's transformation startled the 100,000 warriors outside. Then, more were confused and confused. Many of them seemed to have seen Lu Li's transformation before, but they could not remember where they had seen him before. How come he looks like that? Which one? Are you talking about the ability of that prodigy in the West? Yes, the one from the Celestial Emperor's sect, the one that killed Guan Xianxiu. It is said that he can transform into a humanoid dragon with a dragon tail, wings, and horns. Doesn't Phone Wooding look like him? What do you mean by like? He looks exactly the same. My family has a file about Lu Li from the Celestial Emperor's sect. He looks exactly like Phone Wooding. I have never heard of such a skill before. How come there are two of them? Both Phone Wooding and Lu Li can do it. Do you think maybe it is the same person? That is not possible. Lu Li is a disciple of the Celestial Emperor's sect. The Celestial Emperor's sect didn't take part in the fight. If the higher-ups don't agree, how can a disciple join the fight on his own? Is he an imposter? I think he is an imposter. After all, Phone Wooding was not famous before. How come he is so powerful all of a sudden? Is it possible that the Celestial Emperor's sect sent him here on purpose? It was noisy outside. People were guessing, doubting, discussing, and denying. In addition to the 100,000 onlookers, many great Emperor Realm warriors were doubtful, especially those who could tell that Lu Li was wearing a mask. Shadow Queen pulled a long face. She sent a message to a patriarch at once. Give me a copy of Lu Li's profile from the Celestial Emperor's sect. She could tell right away that Lu Li was wearing a mask. Lu Li said it was because he had enemies. But now, she had to doubt Lu Li's identity. The Holy Maiden sect had information about Lu Li. She could be sure by getting a copy. Oh no! Ling Long and Lu Ling's hearts were weighed down by Shadow Queen's words. Something bad could happen today. If Shadow Queen was enraged, Lu Li would be severely injured even if he could survive. Many people outside were stunned. Inside, Hua Tian Dao was stunned as well. Lu Li, however, was not. Since he had chosen to expose his identity, he naturally wanted to end the battle as quickly as possible. He spread his wings, and his body turned into a blur as he flew over. His dragon claws sparkled with origin power. He believed that no one other than a quasi-emperor would be able to withstand this attack. The cold killing intent woke Hua Tian Dao up. Seeing Lu Li coming over, Hua Tian Dao swung his saber at once, trying to stop Lu Li. Lu Li didn't dodge. Origin energy glowed in his hand, and he grabbed at the black sword energy. The horrifying sword energy was shattered by Lu Li's claws. Lu Li was unstoppable. He rushed over at a horrifying speed. Looking at Lu Li's cold and emotionless eyes, Hua Tiandao panicked. His move was shattered by Lu Li so easily. Then, the only thing he could rely on was the Mirror of Darkness. However, Lu Li did not use long-range attacks. He was preparing for close combat. Hua Tiandao's mirror was useless now. Lu Li was coming. Hua Tiandao had to use the mirror as a piece of artifact. On the other hand, Hua Tiandao waved his great emperor weapon and hacked at Lu Li's claw. He did not believe that Lu Li's claw could survive his great emperor weapon. Swish, Lu Li's tail swept over. He reached at the mirror with one claw and at Hua Tiandao's great emperor weapon with the other. After the dragon transformation, Lu Li's body was already strong. What was more, his claw was filled with source energy. He was confident that he could stop Hua Tiandao's great emperor weapon. Boom! The mirror was smashed away. Lu Li's other hand bumped into the great emperor weapon. Both Hua Tiandao and Lu Li trembled. Lu Li's claw was bleeding. The great emperor weapon was knocked away. Hua Tiandao almost lost his grip on his saber. Whoosh! Hua Tiandao was entangled by Lu Li's tail. One of Lu Li's claw was injured, but the other was fine. Lu Li swung his tail and brought Hua Tiandao to him. Lu Li reached at Hua Tiandao's arm that was holding the great emperor weapon. With a miserable cry, Hua Tiandao's arm was crushed. The great emperor weapon fell to the ground. Lu Li raised his blood-stained dragon claw. Pointing at Hua Tiandao's head, Lu Li said coldly, "Do you admit defeat?" Hua Tiandao's eyes were filled with hatred and fear. He believed that if he did not, Lu Li would crush his head the next second. Hua Tiandao could not hold on any longer. The gap between him and Lu Li was too wide. Hua Tiandao shouted, "I admit defeat!" Buzzing with a flash of white light, both Lu Li and Hua Tiandao were teleported out. It was still noisy outside. From a moment Lu Li transformed to the moment he won the fight. Only the time for a few breaths had passed. Many people did not realize that the fight was over. After the transformation, Lu Li's comprehensive abilities could be compared to that of a quasi-emperor. Hua Tiandao's abilities were not bad, but not as good as a quasi-emperor's. Therefore, there was no suspense in this fight. It was just that Lu Li would use his trump card. Phew. Lu Li spread his tail and let go of Hua Tiandao. But he did not deactivate the dragon transformation. His eyes were still cold, but he was panicking inside. He could tell that Shadow Queen and many great Emperor Realm warriors were looking at him with hostility. His identity was exposed. Lu Li did not have time to think because of the urgency of the situation. But now he was troubled. As soon as he used the dragon transformation, he would arouse suspicion. After all, the fact that he killed Guan Xinxiu was known to everyone in the endless ruins of divinity. As the protege of Emperor Rui, all the families must be familiar with his identity. Nobody in the endless ruins of divinity could use the dragon transformation. Naturally, people would associate him with his real identity. All of a sudden, it quieted down. The atmosphere was strange. The fight was over, but the patriarch of the Holy Maiden sect did not announce the result. That was why Lu Li was nervous. He was not nervous because his life was in danger. He was afraid that he could not take Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong away. In that case, everything he had done would be meaningless. I will report him. Right at that moment, someone shouted. Dong Ying came down from the stands. He bowed to Shadow Queen and the others and said, "I report this man. He is not Fengwuding. He is Lu Li, a disciple of the Celestial Emperor sect. This man is impersonating someone else, and he is up to no good. I request that he be disqualified and all his rewards be taken back. Otherwise, we will withdraw from the seminar at Huayang." Dong Ying finally made his move. He shouted in public just to make the matter as big as possible so that the Holy Maiden sect would be pressured to disqualify Lu Li. In that case, Lu Li would not be able to take Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong away. Lu Li had won the first place. The higher he stood, the harder he would fall. Dong Yang wanted Lu Li to watch Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong marry someone else while he could do nothing about it. That is right. Hua Tiandao came to his senses as well. He shouted angrily, "If we do not disqualify him, we will withdraw from the seminar, Huayang. You can enjoy yourselves." "Me too. Yes, yes." Many other talented disciples echoed, mainly because Lu Li was a disciple of the Celestial Emperor sect. Usually, disciples of the Celestial Emperor sect were superior and looked down on disciples of other sections. This was a rare opportunity. Naturally, they would gang up on Lu Li. Do they think that our Saintist sect is easy to bully? Do you think we don't dare to kill? Since Lu Li had revealed his identity, the Shadow Queen did not dare to kill him directly. Otherwise, she would be declaring war against the Heaven Emperor sect. Therefore, she decided to take Lu Li down on the side of justice, and then ask for an explanation from the Heaven Emperor sect. Ha ha ha! Lu Li laughed out loud. His laughter was very presumptuous and unscrupulous. After laughing for a while, he said, "Movie Queen, that's not right. I'm participating as an individual. The sect doesn't know about it, not even my master. Besides, how did I ruin Hua Yang's Dao discussion? Didn't you say that all the young heroes of the world could participate in the Hua Yang discussion? I've been fighting all the way up here. Which one of my matches have I messed up? Which battle didn't follow your rules? How can I ruin it? Also, you claim that Hua Yang's Dao discussion is a competition between the best young warriors of the entire endless ruins of gods. If we, the Heaven Emperor sect, are not participating, it will lose its luster. How can people like Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang represent the best of the young warriors of the endless ruins of gods? The best. Splash. As soon as Lu Li finished his words, everyone was in an uproar. Lu Li's words were presumptuous. He was so arrogant and insufferably arrogant. He was so arrogant that he looked down on the heroes of the world. He had slapped Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang in public. But he had the right to do so because Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang were no match for him. Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang's expressions were clouded over. Lu Li had called them out in front of 100,000 people and so many powerful warriors. This was a great humiliation for them. However, this was the Saintist sect, and they were not as capable as Lu Li. What else could they say? They would be asking for humiliation if they said anything else. Lu Li had defended himself. He didn't give the movie queen a chance to take the moral high ground. He was a disciple of the Heaven Emperor sect, a famous one. If the movie queen didn't give him a reason to act recklessly, it would lead to a war with the Heaven Emperor sect. "Ha ha, you have a glib tongue." The movie queen sneered and said, "Since you are here to participate, why don't you sign up openly? Why do you have to pretend to be someone else? You have rashly joined the competition without the permission of our sect. Isn't this making trouble?" "I have said it," Lu Li said with a tone that was neither overbearing nor servile. "I am here on my own." The sect did not agree. "If I openly participate in the battle and the sect finds out, I will be punished. Everyone knows that the rules of the Heaven Emperor sect are strict. When I go back, I will be severely punished. As for not letting your sect know, it is my fault. I am worried that if I am exposed, you will not give me a fair chance." After all, the Heaven Emperor sect did not declare their participation. "I am here because I heard some rumors that the disciples of the Heaven Emperor sect are afraid. Afraid to come? Afraid of being disgraced? I want to tell you, there are powerful warriors in the younger generation of the Heaven Emperor sect. There are at least 10 that are more powerful than me. The Heaven Emperor sect is capable. It's just that the higher-ups don't like us to come out and show off. I am here to redeem the name of the Heaven Emperor sect. To redeem the name of the Heaven Emperor sect." Lu Li had put up a strong front. The front was big enough, and the reason was strong enough. Nobody could say anything. A disciple of a sect, dissatisfied with the rumors, had come out to redeem the name of the sect. His courage and mentality were admirable. He was standing on the moral high ground. After all, Lu Li was a young man. Young people were hot-blooded and impulsive. Wasn't that normal? Didn't disciples of other sects often do silly things as well? Among the 100,000 people on the stands, many were looking at Lu Li with gentleness and respect. The disciples of the Heaven Emperor sect had their own halo. Now, Luli felt he was magnificent. Shadow Queen had to swallow the bitter pill in silence. She was a famous, powerful warrior in the endless ruins of divinity. To argue with a junior like Lu Li was humiliating. Lu Li had put up a righteous cause, claiming that he was redeeming the Heaven Emperor sect. If she still gave the order to take Lu Li down, then the Holy Lady sect would be seen as petty, which would affect the reputation of the Holy Lady sect. Deep down, she wished she could cut Lu Li into pieces. But could she? Publicly killing a disciple of the Heaven Emperor sect, an excellent one at that? The warriors of the Heaven Emperor sect were looking for an excuse to declare war on the Holy Lady sect. At the end of the day, Lu Li didn't do anything wrong. He had been following the rules set by the Huayang Seminar of Tao. If she were to criticize him too harshly, then the Holy Lady sect would be seen as intolerant. No matter what, Shadow Queen thought for a while and said, "You are not a regular participant and you have broken our rules. Therefore, your fight is invalid. Your reward and ranking will be revoked." What should I do? Lu Li was troubled. He didn't care about the reward. He could give up the title of the champion of the seminar of Huayang. But what about Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong? Chapter 2803. Seeing that Lu Li did not say anything, Shadow Queen asked, "What? Are you not convinced?" Yes, Lu Li was not convinced. That being said, he knew very well that the Huayang seminar was organized by the Holy Lady sect, and they were the ones who set the rules. He had to be convinced. The main reason was that Lu Li did not sign up through the normal channels. There was no other way. The Huayang seminar was organized by the Holy Lady sect, and the prizes were given out by them. Okay. Shadow Queen turned to the patriarch of the Holy Lady sect, who shouted, "Since Foam Wooding, no, Lu Li has been disqualified, then the first place belongs to Hua Tiandao, Wen Xiang, Dong Yang, and so on." Hua Tiandao had picked up a bargain and won the first place. But when the news spread out, it would be a joke. After all, he did not win the first place based on his abilities. He had picked it up from the ground. Shadow Queen and the others felt there was nothing they could do. This time, the Huayang seminar was messed up by Lu Li. It was not as interesting as before. All the young masters felt it was a joke. The Celestial Emperor sect did not take part. A disciple sneaked in and won the first place easily. This was a slap to the faces of many forces. The Holy Lady sect was embarrassed. They had planned to ally with the other forces to deal with the Celestial Emperor sect, but they were disrupted by a random disciple from the Celestial Emperor sect. But on the surface, nobody could do anything to Lu Li. The patriarch of the Holy Lady sect had to follow the procedure and began to award the prizes to Hua Tiandao and the others. Lu Li took the initiative to return the pellets he gave to the disciples of the Holy Lady sect. But to many people's confusion, Lu Li did not leave. Theoretically speaking, the Holy Lady sect was not responsible for pursuing Lu Li. Lu Li had made a name for himself, and he had made a name for the Celestial Emperor sect. Shouldn't he leave? What was he going to do here? Was he going to embarrass the Holy Lady sect? Or was he going to force the Holy Lady sect to send him away? Lu Li was in a hurry, but he did not show it. It was not that he wanted to stay. If Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong left with him, he would not want to stay here for one more second. Besides, Blood Fairy had not come out yet. He could not just leave. On second thought, Lu Li sent a message to Blood Fairy through Spiritual Link. It would be a great loss if Blood Fairy was left behind instead of Lu Ling and the others. "Master, don't be anxious. I made great progress." All of a sudden, Blood Fairy said. Lu Li frowned. He was unhappy. Why was Blood Fairy still here at a time like this? What was the point of making progress? What was the use of comprehending more divine inscriptions? If she was sealed by the Shadow Queen, Blood Fairy could only become a weapon spirit. Lu Li quickly said, "Don't worry about the progress. If you don't come out now, I'm afraid you will be sealed in Empress Peak and never be able to leave." "I'm fine." Blood Fairy's words rendered Lu Li speechless. But what she said next made Lu Li tremble. Blood Fairy said, "Master, I am about to master the core of Mount Empress. If you need it, I can help you refine Empress Peak and make this sacred weapon yours to use. What? Luli was shocked. He could not believe it. Mount Empress was a sacred weapon with a powerful weapon spirit. How could Blood Fairy be in control of Mount Empress? Blood Fairy could not attack. If that weapon spirit was enraged, Blood Fairy could be turned into ashes in an instant. What was the purpose of an artifact spirit? To protect the relic weapon and enhance its power at the same time. If someone wanted to destroy the relic weapon, the weapon spirit would risk its life. This was not something that could be swayed with a few words. The duty of an artifact spirit was to protect the relic weapon. No words could sway an artifact spirit because it was not intelligent and was stubborn. Luli was worried. He said at once, "Blood Fairy, don't do anything rash. You will be killed by that weapon spirit." "It's okay," Blood Fairy said with certainty. The real core of Mount Empress is not the weapon spirit, but the core of a formation. The reason why the weapon spirit cannot come in is to suppress the weapon spirit. I am in the core now, and I am confident that I can control it. Once I control the weapon spirit will be under my control as well. Mount Empress will be mine. What? This time, Luli was pleasantly surprised. His eyes flickered. Almost at once, he made up his mind. "Blood Fairy, take control of this Mount of Empress as soon as possible and then fly it to me," he said to Blood Fairy. "Okay," Blood Fairy replied. "Master, give me the time for 2 incense sticks to burn. I can take control of the core easily. I have learned all the patterns here. It will not be difficult." Luli suppressed his excitement. He sat in the outdoor pavilion and pretended to be tending to his wounds. In fact, he was in a trance. He ignored the looks of hatred from the female and male disciples and sat there leisurely. Queen Shadow looked at Luli, feeling helpless. She looked at a patriarch who ignored Luli and began to hand out the prizes and rewards. The contest had come to an end. The spectators should have left by now. However, they were still not satisfied. Luli was still there. Somehow, they felt something was going to happen. Maybe they wanted to see the higher-ups of the Holy Lady sect kill or capture Luli so that the Heaven Emperor sect would be enraged. The award ceremony was grand. Queen Shadow and several great emperors gave out the prizes in person. However, everyone, including Hua Tiandao, felt it was boring. They felt their faces were burning. Dong Ying unexpectedly made it to the top 3, but he was not happy at all. He wanted to see Luli killed by the Holy Lady sect, or at least captured. That being said, he had some extravagant hope. He was the 3rd. He hoped that he could marry either Lu Ling or Ling Long. In that case, at least, he would have some comfort. He could abuse her every day. That would be a pleasant thing. Soon, the award ceremony was over. The seminar at Mount Huayang had come to an end. The patriarch of the Holy Lady sect announced that the contest was a complete success. The spectators began to leave and go back to the city of Holy Lady. Only important guests were invited to stay for the banquet. A disciple of the Holy Lady sect walked to Lu Li under the signal of a patriarch and said coldly, "Young Master Lu, the discussion on Mount of Huayang is over. You can leave now. You are not our honored guest, so..." Lu Li opened his eyes. He grinned and said, "Pretty lady, I am going to recover soon. Can you give me the time for 1 incense stick to burn?" "No," the disciple said coldly. "Please leave now, or we will have to force you out. You of the Holy Lady sect are so rude." Lu Li rolled his eyes. He kept on wasting time with the disciple. After a while, a patriarch of the Holy Lady sect grew impatient. She walked over and said coldly, "Young Master Lu, please behave yourself. You are no longer our honored guest. Please leave the Mount Huayang." Lu Li wanted to buy some more time. The patriarch of the Holy Lady sect took out her weapon. It seemed that she would force Lu Li out if he did not leave. Lu Li was troubled. Right at that moment, Blood Fairy finally said, "Master, it's done." "Okay." Chapter 2804. Holy weapons were the most powerful treasures at the 3rd heaven and in the endless ruins. The Peak of Goddess was one of the most valuable treasures in the world. Lu Li was not ambitious enough to take the Peak of Goddess for himself, nor did he have the ability. Even if he did, he would not be a match for the real emperors. He asked Blood Fairy to control the Peak of Goddess so that she could be used as a bargaining chip in the negotiation. The Peak of Goddess was the most important treasure of the Holy Lady sect, and it was of paramount importance. If something were to happen to the Peak of Goddess, the overall capability of the Holy Lady sect would be weakened. The artifact spirit in the holy weapon was strong. The Saint Emperor who forged the holy weapon must have been worried that the artifact spirit would have intelligence of its own. Therefore, he left the Gate of Life to suppress the artifact spirit. Shadow Queen and the others did not care about Blood Fairy because the artifact spirit was too strong. Blood Fairy herself could not attack. If the artifact spirit wanted to attack, Blood Fairy could be turned into ashes in an instant. By a freak combination of factors, Blood Fairy had found a loophole. Why are you still here? The patriarch of the Holy Lady sect was enraged to see that Lu Li did not move. Lu Li smiled lightly and said, I'm going to say goodbye to the movie queen. I'll leave now. Lu Li quickly walked out of the open-air attic and entered the attic where the Shadow Queen was. Shadow Queen and the other emperors looked over. Hua Tiandao and Dong Yang were here as well. They looked over with hostility and ill will. Lu Ling and Xiang Linglong were here as well. They did not show any emotion when Lu Li walked in, but inside they were bitter. Their eyes were filled with mixed feelings. Lu Li cupped his fists and said with a smile, Shadow Queen, Lords, I will show you a skill. Take a look. Lu Li's hand suddenly glowed as source of energy appeared. The other emperors were not nervous. For them, Lu Li was no different from an ant. They could crush him easily. However, Lu Li's words attracted the attention of the crowd. A group of people looked over. Whoosh! Right at that moment, the Peak of Goddess on the table next to Shadow Queen suddenly glowed and flew toward Lu Li. Lu Li grabbed it in his hand. Holding the Peak of Goddess with a smile, Lu Li said, What do you think of this skill? Silence. Originally, there were some soft noises inside, but at this moment, it was frighteningly quiet, and the atmosphere had become especially oppressive. This was because the Shadow Empress and the others had released their terrifying killing intent. More than 10 Emperor-level experts had released their auras and killing intent at the same time. How terrifying was that? The spectator stands were organizing the people to leave. Some of them had already flown up into the sky. At this moment, they sensed the terrifying killing intent here. They all looked over in astonishment, and then the entire place fell silent. Everyone's psychic power was focused on Lu Li and the Peak of Empress in his hand. Many people noticed when Lu Li walked into the attic and heard what Lu Li said. They were all shocked. Lu Li said he was going to perform a spell, and then he actually took the Empress Peak in his hands in front of the movie queen. What was he going to do? Could it be that he wanted to snatch Empress Peak? Was he going to fight against the Saintess sect alone? Was he crazy? Or was this a conspiracy of the Heavenly Emperor sect? Was the Heavenly Emperor sect going to start an all-out war with the Saintess sect? Originally, many people wanted to see more, but now they were even more excited. As expected, something big was going to happen. Today's show was worth it. Even though the movie queen and the others were releasing their horrifying killing intent, they didn't do anything. They didn't show it on their faces, but inside, they were shocked. Emperor's Peak was a holy weapon. How come it was in Lu Li's hands? Why did it fly over on its own? The Emperor's Peak was not completely controlled by the movie queen, but the artifact spirit inside had received an order to obey her for the time being. The artifact spirit was the core that controlled the Emperor's Peak. Without the movie queen's order, the artifact spirit wouldn't let the Emperor's Peak fly around. What was going on? Had Lu Li controlled the Emperor's Peak? Everyone was in a state of confusion. They didn't dare to act rashly. Emperor's Peak was too important to the Saintess sect. Nothing could go wrong. After the time for 2 breaths, the movie queen finally said, Lu Li, do you have a death wish? Do you really think I don't have the courage to kill you? Give the Emperor's Peak back, or die. Ha. As Shadow Queen spoke, her murderous intent grew stronger. Lu Li was not afraid at all. Instead, he raised the Emperor's Peak in front of him with a smile. He looked around and said, A holy weapon is really a holy weapon. It's beautiful. Movie Empress and everyone, please calm down. It is easy for you to kill me, but before I die, I can make the Emperor's Peak explode. Do you believe that I can do that? Explode. There was an uproar outside. If the Emperor's Peak really exploded, then it would be funny. This was one of the most powerful assets of the Saintist sect. Luli had the ability to make the Emperor's Peak explode. This was a big joke, but it was an indisputable fact that the Emperor's Peak was in Luli's hands. The hearts of the Shadow Empress and the rest tightened. If something like that really happened, they didn't dare to imagine how furious their sect master would be. If the Emperor's Peak really exploded, then the Saintist sect would suffer a great loss, so great that they couldn't bear it. The group of great Emperor Realm warriors looked at the movie queen, waiting for her decision. The movie queen was expressionless. She said coldly, "Oh, are you sure you can do that?" "Ha ha." Luli smiled. Then, the Emperor's Peak glowed and began to grow in Luli's hand. At the same time, the suffocating chi and energy began to spread out from the Emperor's Peak. The holy weapon was beginning to show its power. The Emperor's Peak became the size of a head and then shrank. The separation bead in Luli's hand glowed and the Emperor's Peak disappeared. He said with a smile, "Movie Queen, do you believe that I can do that? I am sorry. This Emperor's Peak is mine now. I can do whatever I want. It is easy for you to kill me. It is also easy for me to make it explode." Luli's voice was not loud, but the entire Mount of Huayong was quiet. Everyone could hear him clearly. Many people were filled with disbelief and confusion. This was the Emperor's Peak, one of the most powerful holy weapons in the endless ruins of gods. How could Luli take control of it without anyone knowing? This was simply an inexplicable matter. It was too unimaginable. Not to mention holy weapons. Even imperial weapons would be difficult to take control before the spiritual imprint of the owner was removed, let alone holy weapons. Not to mention that the holy weapon had been under the watch of the Shadow Queen. Inside the holy weapon, there was an artifact spirit that was as powerful as an emperor. Luli just climbed the stone stairs, and he could take control of the Emperor's Peak. This Emperor's Peak was so easy to take control. Nobody could figure it out. Nobody, including Movie Queen and Lu Ling, could figure it out. But it was undeniable that Luli had taken control of the Emperor's Peak, at least part of it. Luli might have the ability to destroy the Emperor's Peak. A warrior, a nobody that Movie Queen and others could crush at any time, had done such a big thing, something that Movie Queen and others could not do anything about. He stood in the attic leisurely, tall and straight, with a gentle smile on his face. It was as if he had dominated the scene and suppressed more than a dozen Emperor Realm warriors by himself. All right, after the time for 10 breaths, Shadow Queen put away her killing intent. She said, feeling wronged, "Luli, you have won. State your terms. But you don't have to go overboard. I would rather die than live in disgrace." Luli grinned and said, "I don't have the guts to ask for too much. I just have 2 small requests. If Movie Queen can help me achieve my wishes, I will return the Emperor's Peak to you in good condition." Movie Queen said emotionlessly, "Say it." You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.